Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the sage god monster, the true S-class ran. K1 hero, Naruto x Tatsumaki, One Punch Man. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Dimensional Rift. The sky fractured like shattered glass. What began as a cloudless afternoon in Z City transformed into a kaleidoscope of reality breaking apart. Citizens froze mid-stride, necks craned upward as purple-black fissures spider-webbed across the azure expanse. The air itself seemed to compress and expand simultaneously, creating a pressure that popped eardrums and jaw. TTERED windows in a cascading wave of destruction. From within the largest fracture emerged a figure wreathed in golden light so intense that onlookers were forced to shield their eyes. He descended slowly, almost floating, his tattered white cloak billowing around him despite the absence of wind. 6 black orbs orbited his body in perfect harmony, occasionally pulsing with an energy that distorted the very fabric of reality around them. His hair, a shock of blonde spikes, seemed to defy gravity, while markings reminiscent of ancient runes adorned his visible skin. Naruto Uzumaki had arrived. The moment his sandaled feet touched the concrete of the deserted business district, the fractures in the sky began to heal themselves, reality stitching back together with audible creaks and groans. Curious pedestrians who had maintained a safe distance began capturing the phenomenon on their phones, the mysterious man's arrival instantly becoming the day's viral sensation. "Where the hell am I?" Naruto muttered, cerulean eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape of skyscrapers and architectural styles that differed markedly from his world. The sage markings around his eyes, orange pigmentation, that extended outward like the brush strokes of a master calligrapher, pulsed briefly as he extended his senses outward. What he felt nearly brought him to his knees. This world, the natural energy here is wild, untamed. His pupils dilated as information flooded his consciousness. And dangerous. So much more potent than back home. A thunderous explosion several blocks away interrupted his contemplation. Screams followed, hundreds of them, overlapping in a cacophony of human terror. Naruto's body moved instinctively, golden chakra flaring around him as he vanished in a flash of speed. That left a crater in the pavement beneath where he had stood. 3 bounds across rooftops brought him to chaos incarnate. A creature that defied conventional description rampaged through the commercial district. Standing nearly 40 feet tall, its body resembled a grotesque fusion of crustacean and primate, with a carapace of iridescent blue-black chitin covering rippling muscles. 6 arms dead in massive pincers that crushed concrete and steel with casual swipes, while multiple eyes swiveled independently across what passed for its face. "Disaster level. Dragon." A voice boomed from emergency speakers mounted throughout the district. "Evacuate immediately. Hero Association response units are en route." The monster, for Naruto could conceive of no other appropriate term, lifted an entire bus above its head. The screaming passengers visible through the windows. Fascinating transportation device, it gurgled through mandibles dripping with bioluminescent saliva. "I wonder if the contents are equally interesting when squeezed." Naruto didn't hesitate. A single hand seal and his form blurred, replaced by a dozen identical clones that scattered in strategic formation. 2 launch, head themselves directly at the creature's arms, while another pair positioned themselves beneath the bus. The original Naruto appeared on a lamppost directly in the monster's line of sight. "Hey, shellfish face." His voice carried authority that seemed impossible from his youthful appearance. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" The creature's eyes swiveled toward him. "Another hero. You all taste the same in the end. I'm nothing like what you've faced before," Naruto replied calmly, the 6 truth-seeking orbs spinning more rapidly around him. "Put the bus down gently, and I might consider letting you walk away." The monster's response was a roar that shattered windows for blocks. It hurled the bus directly at Naruto, sending it spinning through the air at lethal velocity. Time seemed to slow for the sage god. His clones had already positioned themselves perfectly, 2 catching the bus with chakra-enhanced strength while the others created a cushioning network of golden chains that absorbed the kinetic energy. The bus settled gently onto the street as the passengers stared in disbelief through the windows. "Everyone out now," Naruto commanded, his clones already seeing the doors open and creating a safe evacuation route away from the battle zone. The creature charged, all 6 arms extended with pincers snapping. What are you? Your energy signature isn't human. Naruto's expression remained serene as he formed a single hand seal. Neither is yours. But unlike you, I use my power to protect. A golden aura enveloped him as he entered a deeper state of 6 paths sage mode. The air around him vibrated with pure natural energy, so concentrated that it became visible as golden flames that danced across his skin without burning. The creature hesitated momentarily, its primitive instincts registering something its conscious mind couldn't comprehend: true danger. That moment of hesitation was all Naruto needed. Sage Art. Massive Rasengan Barrage. The attack wasn't just physically devastating, it was beautiful. Dozens of spiraling golden spheres materialized around Naruto, each containing the concentrated power of natural energy refined through perfect chakra control. They launched forward in perfect synchronization, striking the creature from multiple angles with mathematical precision. The monster's carapace, which had reportedly withstood tank shells according to panicked military radio chatter, cracked like an egg. It released an inhuman shriek as the spheres drilled into its body, the rotation creating microscopic cutting edges that shredded its cellular structure without explosive collateral damage to the surroundings. When the light faded, the creature lay immobilized, its limbs twitching but its threat neutralized. Naruto approached it slowly, crouching beside what remained of its head. "I didn't kill you," he said softly, a statement rather than a question. "You'll recover eventually, though you'll probably wish I hadn't been so merciful. Here's some advice: find a different hobby. If I see you threatening civilians again, I won't hold back." The creature's mandibles clacked weakly. "What are you?" Naruto stood, the golden aura fading slightly though never disappearing completely. "Just someone who happened to be passing through." A sudden pressure change in the atmosphere alerted him to a new presence. Seconds before, the asphalt beside him exploded upward. A diminutive figure wreathed in green energy descended from above, her presence commanding despite her small stature. Green hair floated around her head as if underwater, and her eyes glowed with psionic power. "Who the hell are you?" demanded Tatsumaki, the Tornado of Terror, S-Class Rank 2 hero of the Hero Association. "And why are you interfering in official Hero Association business?" Naruto turned to face her, unfazed by the telekinetic pressure she was exerting. His sensory abilities instantly catalogued her power, immense by this world's standards. Though fundamentally different from chakra, her energy moved like thousands of invisible hands, manipulating matter at a subatomic level through sheer force of will. "Fascinating. I'm Naruto Uzumaki," he replied simply, offering a friendly smile that contrasted with the godlike power still radiating from him. "And I was just helping out. Those people would have died if someone didn't step in." Tatsumaki's eyes narrowed as she fully registered his energy signature. Her psychic senses, finely honed through years of combat, had never encountered anything like him. The closest analog would be a monster of the highest caliber, yet his energy lacked the chaotic malevolence typical of such beings. Instead, it flowed harmoniously, perfectly balanced between tremendous power and precise control. "Are you registered with the association?" she demanded, maintaining her defensive stance. Debris orbited her petite form, ready to launch at the slightest provocation. The what now? Naruto's genuine confusion momentarily disarmed her. "Look, I just arrived in this world. Literally just fell from the sky about 5 minutes ago. I heard people in trouble and came to help. Is that a problem here?" Before Tatsumaki could respond, the sound of helicopter blades cut through the air as media crews arrived on scene. Camera lenses zoomed in on the unusual pair standing over he defeated monster, the established hero and the mysterious newcomer. "This conversation isn't over," Tatsumaki stated flatly, though her offensive posture relaxed slightly. "But we should move this somewhere less public. The association will want to debrief you, especially given," she gestured vaguely at his entire being, "whatever you are." Naruto nodded, dispelling his remaining clones with a casual thought. The evacuated civilians had reached safety, and emergency responders were already cordoning off the area. "Lead the way." As they departed, Tatsumaki flying, Naruto easily keeping G paced through roof hopping that seemed more like controlled teleportation to observers. Neither noticed the microscopic drone that detached itself from a nearby building. Its optical sensors had recorded everything, transmitting data to a secure facility buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. In that facility, a woman with rectangular glasses adjusted her lab coat as she reviewed the footage, her eyes widening at the energy readings displayed across her monitors. Dimensional anomaly confirmed. Drive. Hinami Kushino murmured into her recorder. Subject exhibits energy patterns consistent with theoretical multiversal variants. Recommend immediate contact protocol. She paused, watching Naruto's movements with scientific fascination. And prepare containment measures. Just in case. The Hero Association headquarters towered over City A, its gleaming facade projecting strength and order in a world constantly threatened by monsters and disasters. The building's innovative design incorporated defensive measures disguised as architectural flourishes, reinforced support structures, emergency power systems, and multiple escape routes for both staff and civilians. Naruto whistled appreciatively as they approached. Impressive place. Reminds me of the Hokage Tower back home, just bigger and shinier. Tatsumaki rolled her eyes but said nothing as she led him through a private entrance. Bypassing the main security checkpoints, her S-class rank afforded her privileges few others enjoyed, including bringing in unregistered individuals when circumstances warranted. And if any one qualified as a special circumstance, it was the golden-haired enigma walking beside her. They entered a secure elevator that descended rather than ascended, the digital display showing negative floor numbers until they reached B15. The doors opened to reveal a stark corridor lined with reinforced doors, each bearing hazard warnings and security clearance requirements. Is this the welcoming committee area or the place you stick threats? Naruto asked, only half joking as he noted the defensive turrets recessed into the ceiling. Both, Tatsumaki replied curtly. The association assesses unknowns here before determining classification. Classification: human, hero, monster, or threat. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And which am I? For the first time, a ghost of a smile flickered across Tatsumaki's face. That's what we're going to find out. They reached a large conference room where several figures already waited. Naruto instantly assessed them, a skill honed through decades of diplomatic missions and conflicts. 3 wore suits of varying quality, suggesting administrative roles with different levels of authority. 2 others wore tactical gear, likely security personnel. But it was the final individual who caught his attention, a woman in a lab coat whose posture conveyed both scientific curiosity and tightly controlled anxiety. Gentlemen, drive. Kushino, this is the anomaly, Tatsumaki announced, gesturing toward Naruto with casual dismissal that didn't quite match the cautious look in her eyes. Naruto Uzumaki, he corrected, stepping forward and offering a respectful bow that seamlessly blended diplomatic formality with genuine warmth. Thank you for meeting with me. I realize my sudden appearance must raise concerns. The oldest of the suited men, Sich, though Naruto wouldn't learn his name until later, cleared his throat. Mr. Uzumaki, our monitoring systems detected a dimensional anomaly of unprecedented scale precisely at the location and time of your appearance. While we appreciate your assistance with the Crustacean King, we must conduct a thorough assessment of both your abilities and your intentions. Naruto nodded, understanding their caution. That's fair. In your position, I'd do the same. He gestured to the conference table. Shall we sit and talk like civilized people, or would you prefer I stand in the center of the room? While you point more hidden weapons at me. His casual mention of the concealed security measures caused a ripple of unease among the officials. The woman in the lab coat stepped forward, adjusting her glasses with a finger. I'm Drive. Hinami Kushino, head of the association's Paranormal Science Division. She introduced herself, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. Perhaps we could start with some basic information exchange. We'll tell you about our world if you tell us about yours. Naruto smiled genuinely, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. I'd appreciate that, Dr. Kushino. As they settled around the table, Tatsumaki remained standing near the wall, arms crossed, an expression unreadable. Her psychic senses remained focused on Naruto, ready to react at the first sign of hostility. What confused her was the complete absence of malice or deception in his energy signature, a rarity in her experience, particularly from someone so obviously powerful. For the next hour, information flowed freely between Naruto and the association representatives. He explained the concept of chakra, the elemental nations, and his role as both a shinobi and a sage, ca. Briefly omitting certain details about the 9 tails and the full extent of his abilities. In return, they outlined their world's hierarchy of heroes and threats, the monster classification system, and the association's role in maintaining public safety. So these monsters, Naruto mused, leaning back in his chair, they just appear. Through transformation of ordinary creatures or humans. Dr. Kushino nodded, her initial nervousness replaced by professional enthusiasm. Most commonly through what we call monsterization, a process triggered by extreme obsession, environmental factors, or deliberate experimentation. The stronger the obsession or the more significant the transformation catalyst, the more powerful the resulting monster. Fascinating, Naruto replied genuinely. In my world, we had similar threats, the tailed beasts, Akatsuki, Kagaya and the Otsutsuki clan, but they had specific origins and motivations. This seemingly random emergence presents different strategic challenges. Sitch leaned forward. Speaking of your abilities, Mr. Uzumaki, our instruments registered your power at levels that would typically classify as dragon or potentially god-level threat. Yet, you used this power to save civilians with remarkable precision and restraint. Naruto shrugged. Power itself isn't good or evil, it's how you use it that matters. I've spent my life learning that lesson. His eyes briefly clouded with memories. Sometimes the hard way. Dr. Kushino's fingers flew across her tablet. Would you be willing to undergo some basic power assessment tests? Nothing invasive, just standardized measurements that would help us understand how to classify and potentially utilize your abilities. I'm not a weapon to be utilized, Naruto replied firmly but without hostility. But I understand the need for classification in your system. I'll participate in your tests on one condition. Tatsumaki tensed at the mention of conditions, but Sitch merely nodded. Which is, I want to register as a hero. Naruto's expression became serious. If I'm stuck in this world for now, and my current understanding of dimensional travel suggests I am, then I want to help protect it. That's what I've always done, regardless of which world I'm in. The request created a momentary silence, broken by Tatsumaki's incredulous laugh. You think you can just walk in and become a hero? There are protocols, rankings, assessments, all of which I'm happy to comply with, Naruto interrupted gently. I'm not asking for special treatment, just the opportunity to use my abilities constructively while I'm here. Sitch exchanged glances with his colleagues before nodding slowly. I believe that can be arranged. In fact, given what we witnessed today, fast-tracking your provisional hero status might be in everyone's best interest. Sir, one of the security personnel protested. Regulations clearly state. Regulations also grant executive discretion in extraordinary circumstances, Sitch countered. And I think we can all agree that a visitor from another dimension who single-handedly neutralized a dragon-level threat qualifies as extraordinary. Dr. Kushino's eyes hadn't left her tablet. According to preliminary analysis, if Mr. Uzumaki were to be classified under our current system, he would likely rank as an S-class hero from the outset. She looked up, meeting Naruto's gaze directly. Possibly the highest ranked among them, based on raw power output alone. This statement finally provoked a reaction from Tatsumaki. She pushed away from the wall, her green aura flaring. That's absurd. S-class is earned through proven achievements and consistent results, not a single lucky encounter. I agree, Naruto said, surprising everyone. I wouldn't expect or accept an S-class ranking immediately. Let me start wherever your system dictates and work my way up properly. I've never been one to take shortcuts. The irony of this statement, given how his master Y of Flying Thunder God technique literally allowed him to create shortcuts through space-time, wasn't lost on him, but the principle remained true. Naruto had never sought recognition without earning it through demonstrated worth in concrete actions. Sitch nodded approvingly. A commendable attitude. We'll arrange for official testing tomorrow morning. Until then, we should discuss temporary accommodations. He can stay at my facility, Drive. Kushino interjected, then flushed slightly at the sudden attention. The Paranormal Science Division maintains specialized guest quarters for research subjects of interest. They're quite comfortable and would allow us to monitor any dimensional energy fluctuations without intrusive procedures. Naruto considered the offer. He sensed no deception from the scientist. Though her interest clearly extended beyond professional courtesy, the opportunity to learn more about this world through someone knowledgeable was appealing, and he'd grown accustomed to being an object of scientific fascination during his evolution into the sage god. I appreciate the offer, Drive. Kushino. I accept, provided I retain freedom of movement and my privacy is reasonably respected. Of course, she agreed quickly. We're scientists, not jailers. As the meeting concluded with administrative details, Tatsumaki lingered behind while the others filed out. When only she and Naruto remained, she approached him directly, her diminutive stature belying the intimidating presence she projected. I don't trust you, she stated flatly. Naruto met her gaze without flinching. I haven't given you reason to yet. Trust is earned over time. Your power. She hesitated, seemingly struggling to articulate her concern. It's not like anything I've encountered before. It feels ancient, primordial. Naruto's expression softened slightly. That's because it is. The sage chakra I use connects directly to the life force of the world itself. In my dimension, they called me the sage god because I achieved perfect harmony with natural energy, something previously thought impossible without turning to stone. And the golden aura, the floating black spheres, X-Path's sage mode and truth-seeking orbs. Gifts from an encounter with the progenitor of all chakra. He offered a simplified explanation, knowing the full story involved complexities that would require hours to properly convey. Tatsumaki studied him for several long moments, her psychic senses probing subtly at the edges of his consciousness. To her surprise, she encountered no resistance. He was allowing her surface-level examination without protest. You're powerful enough to be dangerous, she finally concluded. But I don't sense the typical markers of a monster or villain. Her eyes narrowed. That doesn't mean I won't be watching you. Naruto smiled genuinely. I wouldn't expect anything less from someone dedicated to protecting her world. For what it's worth, I respect your caution. Where I come from, the most powerful beings weren't always the most trustworthy. Something in his tone, a hint of old pain carefully controlled, resonated with Tatsumaki in ways she would have preferred to ignore. Without another word, she turned and exited the room, her petite form somehow managing to slam the reinforced door behind her despite using only telekinesis. Naruto chuckled softly to himself. Well, that went better than expected. The Paranormal Science Division's facility occupied a secluded compound 20 minutes outside City A. Unlike the gleaming headquarters of the Hero Association, this complex embraced a more utilitarian aesthetic. Low concrete buildings with minimal windows, surrounded by extensive sensor arrays disguised as landscaping features. Dr. Cushion guided Naruto through security checkpoints with practiced efficiency, her professional demeanor occasionally slipping to reveal genuine scientific excitement. As they walked, she explained the Divis Ion's role within the association, studying phenomena that defied conventional scientific explanation, from psychic abilities like Tatsumaki's to the mechanisms behind monster transformations. And now dimensional travelers, Naruto added with a slight smile. Indeed, she led him into a comfortable suite that bore more resemblance to a high-end hotel room than a laboratory. These are your quarters. The amenities should be self-explanatory, but please don't hesitate to use the communication panel if you need anything. Naruto surveyed the space appreciatively. This is more than adequate, thank you. He moved to the large window that offered a view of forested hills beyond the compound perimeter. Beautiful location. The natural surroundings provide both security and isolation for our more sensitive research drive. Kushino explained, adjusting her glasses. It also allows us to detect energy anomalies without urban interference. Naruto turned to face her directly. Speaking of which, I'm guessing those sensors embedded in the walls aren't just for monitoring room temperature. To her credit, she didn't deny it. They're passive energy detection systems. Non-invasive and primarily designed to alert us to any dimensional fluctuations that might indicate instability. Like if I were suddenly yanked back to my dimension. Or if something else came through. Precisely. She hesitated before adding, "Your arrival created the largest dimensional disturbance we've ever recorded. The energy signature was distinctive. We're still analyzing the data, but preliminary findings suggest the barrier between our worlds has been fundamentally altered." Naruto's expression grew serious. "In my experience, that's rarely a good thing. Dimensional boundaries exist for a reason. You've encountered this phenomenon before." Dr. Kushino's scientific curiosity visibly intensified. "Not exactly like this," Naruto admitted, memories of Kagaya's dimension-hopping abilities surfacing in his mind. "But I've traveled between pocket dimensions, and I've witnessed what happens when barriers between worlds weaken. I'd be very interested in comparing notes," she said, her formality slipping further as her enthusiasm grew. "My specialty is actually dimensional theory. It's why I was assigned as your primary contact." Naruto studied her with new interest. Beneath the professional scientist exterior, he sensed a passionate intellect and genuine concern for the implications of his arrival. It reminded him somewhat of Sakura and Tsunade, brilliant minds whose pursuit of knowledge was ultimately driven by a desire to protect others. "I'm happy to share what I know," he agreed. "Though I should warn you that my understanding comes more from direct experience than theoretical study. I was never the academic type." "Direct experience is invaluable data," she countered. "Especially regarding phenomena as poorly understood as dimensional travel." She glanced at her watch and seemed to remember herself. "But that can wait until you've had time to rest and adjust. You must be disoriented after today's events." "I've had stranger days," Naruto replied with a wry smile. "But some time to meditate and process would be welcome. The natural energy in this world feels different, more volatile but also more abundant. I need to recalibrate my sensory abilities." Dr. Kushino nodded, clearly filing away this information for future reference. "Then I'll leave you to it. Dinner will be available in the dining facility at 1900 hours, or you can request food be brought here if you prefer privacy." "I'll join you for dinner," Naruto decided. The best way to understand a new world is through its people. After she departed, Naruto moved to the center of the room and seated himself in a cross-legged position. His eyes closed as he allowed his consciousness to expand beyond the confines of his physical form, connecting to the natural energy that permeated this dimension. The sensation was overwhelming. In his home world, natural energy existed in a carefully balanced ecosystem with physical and spiritual energies. Here, it seemed almost supercharged, wild and untamed, flowing in patterns that defied the principles he had mastered. It explained much about this world's phenomena, from the spontaneous monster transformations to the emergence of heroes with seemingly impossible abilities. As he carefully drew this energy into himself, a process that would have petrified a lesser sage, memories surfaced unbidden. 5 years earlier, Naruto's original dimension. "You need to stop holding back." Kurama's voice resonated within Naruto's mindscape, where they stood facing each other across the vast expanse that represented their shared consciousness. "Your insistence on maintaining these artificial limitations is becoming dangerous, not just for you, but for everyone you're trying to protect." Naruto, physically seated in meditation on Mount Myoboku, frowned at the nine-tailed fox. "I'm not holding back, Kurama. I'm trying to maintain balance. You've seen what happens when someone wields power beyond their understanding." "Understanding isn't your problem," the fox countered, tails swishing irritably. "You understand power better than most immortals have known. Your problem is fear, not of the power itself, but of what becoming truly extraordinary might mean for your connections to others." The accusation struck closer to home than Naruto wanted to admit. At 37, he had achieved more than most shinobi accomplished in several lifetimes. He had mastered every nature transformation, perfected the techniques of both his father and mother, and developed a sage mode that surpassed even the legendary capabilities of Hashirama Senju. And yet, something held him back from the final step in his evolution. "Is it so wrong to want to remain human?" Naruto asked quietly. "To age alongside my friends, to experience life as they do." Kurama's expression softened marginally. "Noble but misguided. You stopped being merely human the day I was sealed inside you. The path you've walked since then has only taken you further from ordinary humanity. Fighting your nature doesn't preserve your humanity, it denies the responsibility that comes with your unique existence." Before Naruto could respond, a tremor shook their shared consciousness. Outside, in the physical world, warning toads were sounding alarms throughout Mount Myoboku. "We'll finish this discussion later," Naruto said, preparing to exit his meditative state. Rama's voice followed him back to consciousness. "There may not be a later if you continue refusing your destiny." The scene that greeted Naruto as his eyes opened confirmed the fox's warning. The Cred Mountain was under attack by entities that defied conventional description, pale humanoid figures with horns and Byakugan-like eyes, radiating chakra so potent it distorted the air around them. Otsutsuki. More of them. Different from Kagaya and Momoshiki, but unmistakably of the same clan. Sage Naruto. Fukasaku hopped urgently toward him. They appeared without warning. Our barrier techniques failed completely. Naruto rose to his feet, already gathering natural energy. "Evacuate the elders and younglings. I'll handle this. But there are 7 of them. Even you. Go, Pa. Trust me." As the ancient toad reluctantly departed to organize the evacuation, Naruto faced the approaching Otsutsuki. They moved with eerie synchronization, surrounding him in a perfect heptagon formation. "Uzumaki Naruto." The apparent leader spoke, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Last vessel of Kurama, last disciple of the Sage of Six Paths. You have been judged and found worthy of ascension." Ascension. Naruto maintained his defensive stance. "I'm not interested in whatever you're offering. It is not an offer." Another Otsutsuki stepped forward. "It is recognition of what has already begun. Your resistance to your evolution ends today, whether by acceptance or by force." Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama growled. "They're right about one thing. You can't defeat 7 Otsutsuki while holding back your true potential. This is the moment of choice, Naruto." The leader raised her hand, and the air itself seemed to compress around Naruto, cosmic forces bay. OND normal chakra attempting to reshape his very being. "The age of shinobi is ending. The age of gods is returning. Your place among us is assured, if you survive the transformation." Pain unlike anything Naruto had experienced since the 4th Great Ninja War erupted through his chakra network. It wasn't an attack in the conventional sense, it was his own power fighting against artificial constraints. Catalyzed by the Otsutsuki's intervention. In that moment of crisis, with Mount Myoboku and all its inhabitants at risk, Naruto made his choice. Not for godhood or ascension as the Otsutsuki defined it, but for the power necessary to protect what mattered. "Kurama," he whispered through gritted teeth. "Let's show them what a real sage can do." The fox's answering roar reverberated across dimensions. What followed would later be described in reverent whispers throughout the shinobi world. Witnesses spoke of golden light visible from hundreds of miles away, of natural energy spiraling inward from across the continent. Of the very fabric of reality trembling as Naruto Uzumaki finally embraced his complete potential. When the light faded, Mount Myoboku stood untouched, but the 7 Otsutsuki were gone, not destroyed, but banished to pocket dimensions from which they could not easily return. And in their place stood a transformed Naruto, his appearance subtly altered, his presence fundamentally changed. The truth-seeking orbs that manifested around him were larger and more numerous than ever before. His chakra, once a brilliant yellow-orange, now shimmered with golden light that contained hints of every color imaginable. The sage markings around his eyes had become more intricate, extending across his face in patterns that resembled both natural phenomena and ancient seals. Fukasaku, returning to the battlefield, stopped in awe at the threshold. "Naruto boy," he asked hesitantly. Naruto turned, his eyes reflecting wisdom and power beyond mortal comprehension, yet still containing the essential kindness and determination that defined him. "Still me, Pa," he assured the elder toad, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been present before. "Just more of me." In the days that followed, as word spread of his transformation and the defeat of 7 Otsutsuki simultaneously, people began using a new title when referring to Naruto. No longer just the hero of the 4th War or the 7th Hokage, a position he had passed to Konohamaru years earlier, he became known as the Sage God, the human who had transcended mortality without losing his humanity. It was a title he neither sought nor embraced, but one that acknowledged the truth of what he had become, a bridge between worlds, a guardian of the natural order, and a power unlike any the shinobi world had seen since the Sage of Six Paths himself. In his quarters at the Paranormal Science Division facility, Naruto opened his eyes as the memory faded. 5 years had passed since that transformation. Years spent mastering abilities that defied conventional understanding and maintaining the delicate balance between his transcendent nature and his human connections. And now, in an entirely new dimension, that mastery would be tested again. Rising from his meditation posture, he moved to the window and gazed at the unfamiliar landscape. This world's natural energy had already begun to synchronize with his own, adapting to his presence just as he adapted to it. The process would take time, but he could already feel new possibilities emerging, techniques that would function differently here. Powers that might be enhanced or limited by this dimension's unique properties. Kurama, he spoke aloud to his lifelong companion. What do you make of this place? Within his mindscape, the fox stretched languidly. Interesting. Chaotic. Potentially problematic. A pause. That small green-haired female has impressive power for a human. Different from Chakra, but formidable nonetheless. Naruto smiled slightly. Tatsumaki. Yes, I noticed. She reminds me a bit of Sakura, all fierce exterior hiding deeper complexities. And the scientist woman, she practically vibrated with curiosity about you. Dr. Kushino. She seems genuinely passionate about her work. In her position, I'd be curious too. Kurama huffed dismissively. Just be careful. New world, new rules, but some constants remain. Power attracts attention. Both welcome and unwelcome. When am I not careful? Naruto asked with mock offense. The fox's answering growl conveyed centuries of exasperation. Do you want the list chronologically or alphabetically by disaster type? Naruto laughed, the sound carrying subtle harmonics that caused the sensor arrays hidden in his room to register brief energy spikes. In the monitoring station down the hall, drive. Kushino noted the readings with fascination, unaware that this was merely a fraction of what their visitor could generate when he wasn't consciously suppressing his power. As evening approached, Naruto prepared to join the facility staff for dinner, curious about what other insights this strange new world might offer. One thing was certain. His arrival had changed this dimension, just as it had changed him in ways yet to be discovered. The path of the sage god had taken an unexpected turn, and where it would lead remained to be seen. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Rise Through the Ranks. Dawn broke over City Z with an uncharacteristic serenity. No monster alarms had sounded since the previous day's Crustacean King incident, an unusual reprieve in a world where catastrophe had become routine. In his temporary quarters at the Paranormal Science Division facility, Naruto Uzumaki sat cross-legged on the floor rather than the provided bed, his back perfect. TLY straight as golden energy pulsed around him in gentle waves. He hadn't slept, not because the accommodations were inadequate, but because his transformed physiology required minimal rest, partiku. Largely in dimensions rich with natural energy. Instead, he'd spent the night in deep meditation, mapping the flow patterns unique to this world while allowing his chakra to harmonize with the unfamiliar frequencies. A soft chime from the communication panel interrupted his trance. The digital clock read 5:47. Mr. Uzumaki. Dr. Kushino's voice came through the speaker, crisp despite the early hour. Your assessment has been rescheduled for 7 o'clock. A transport will be ready at 6:15 if that's acceptable. Naruto rose fluidly, stretching muscles that hadn't stiffened despite hours of immobility. That works for me. Any particular reason for the change? A brief hesitation. Several S-class heroes expressed interest in observing your evaluation. Accommodating their schedules required adjustment. I see. Naruto smiled slightly, understanding the unspoken message. His arrival had created ripples beyond the scientific community. I'll be ready. After a brief shower, Naruto dressed in the clothes provided by the facility, simple black training gear that fit surprisingly well, though he kept his own distinctive white cloak. The garment wasn't merely decorative, woven with microscopic seals and infused with his chakra over years, it functioned as both armor and power regulator. Dr. Kushino waited in the facility's reception area, a tablet clutched to her chest and dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting she'd spent the night analyzing data rather than sleeping. Good morning. Naruto greeted her warmly. You look like you could use some coffee. She blinked, then offered a tired smile. That obvious, is it? The readings from your meditation session were extraordinary. I couldn't tear myself away. Anything concerning? He asked as they walked toward the exit. Quite the opposite. Your energy harmonized with our dimensional frequency much faster than theoretical models would predict. It's as if you're adapting intentionally. Naruto nodded. I am. Natural energy exists in all dimensions. But its properties vary. The sage techniques I use require precise attunement. Fascinating, she murmured, making notes on her tablet. Most interdimensional theory, STS postulate that visitors would experience rejection effects, like antibodies attacking a foreign body. I might have, Naruto admitted, if I were trying to impose my energy pattern on this world. Instead, I'm letting it teach me its rules. This philosophy seemed to intrigue her more than the scientific implications. Before she could inquire further, they reached a sleek armored vehicle waiting in the compound's circular drive. The association logo, a stylized hero silhouette, adorned its side panels. Your chariot awaits, she said with a small gesture. The journey to the testing facility passed in comfortable silence. Naruto gazed through tinted windows at the awakening city, noting the architectural differences from his world. Taller buildings, more synthetic materials, less integration with natural elements. The citizens themselves appeared much like those from his dimension, though their clothing and technologies reflected different cultural developments. Most striking were the massive digital billboards featuring heroes in dramatic poses. Metal Knight, Atomic Samurai, Silver Fang, and, predictably, Tatsumaki appeared most frequently, their larger-than-life images promoted. Everything from energy drinks to insurance plans. Celebrity culture, Naruto observed. Interesting approach to heroism. Dr. Kushino followed his gaze. The association found early on that merchandising and media presence helped finance hero operations while boosting public morale. Some heroes embrace it more than others. And Tatsumaki. A small smile crossed the scientist's face. She tolerates it. The association handles her endorsements with minimal involvement on her part. Her sister Fubuki is much more media savvy. Sister. This detail intrigued Naruto. Also an Esper. Yes, though less powerful. She leads B-class heroes called the Blizzard Group. Dr. Kushino hesitated before adding, their relationship is complicated. Naruto nodded, filing away this information. The vehicle entered an underground tunnel. Minutes later, they emerged into a massive hangar concealed beneath what appeared to be an ordinary sports stadium. Welcome to Testing Ground Zero, Drive, Kushino announced as they disembarked. The association's primary assessment facility. The space dwarfed even the largest training arenas from Naruto's world. Various stations dotted the cavernous interior, obstacle courses, combat rings, weight testing platforms, and numerous measurement devices whose purposes weren't immediately obvious. What caught Naruto's attention, however, was the observation deck overlooking the facility, where several distinctive figures had gathered. Your audience awaits, Drive, Kushino noted, following his gaze. That's the largest S-class turnout I've seen for an assessment. Usually they can't be bothered to appear for anything short of a god-level threat. Naruto recognized Tatsumaki's diminutive form immediately, her arms crossed as she floated slightly above the floor in apparent disinterest. Beside her stood a muscular man with a distinctive pompadour hairstyle, gesturing animatedly as he spoke to a cyborg whose metallic body gleamed under the harsh lighting. Several others occupied the space, their attention now focused on the new arrival. How exactly does this assessment work? Naruto asked as they approached a central registration desk. Multiple phases, she explained. Physical capabilities, combat proficiency, disaster response, and psychological evaluation. For most candidates, it takes days. Given yesterday's observations and the unusual circumstances, yours has been condensed into an intensive format. A severe-looking man in a business suit approached them, clipboard in hand. Mr. Uzumaki, I'm Saito from Hero Qualification. We're ready to begin when you are. Naruto nodded respectfully. Lead the way. Dr. Kushino stepped back. I'll be in the observation deck if you need anything. She hesitated, then added with unexpected warmth, good luck. Though I doubt you'll need it. The assessment began with basic physical measurements, height, weight, resting vital signs. The medical technicians exchanged confused glances. when their instruments displayed contradictory readings. Your cellular structure appears to be simultaneously more dense and more flexible than standard human tissue, one commented, recalibrating her scanner. And your core temperature reads at 39.5 degrees Celsius, which would indicate severe fever, yet you show no distress. Naruto smiled apologetically. Side effect of my energy system. The natural energy I channel generates heat that my body has adapted to regulate. They moved on to strength testing, where Naruto carefully modulated his performance. The machine registered his casual punch at 15,827 kilograms of force, impressive enough to raise eyebrows without revealing his true capabilities. Speed tests showed similar restraint, with Naruto completing the course at just under superhuman velocity. "You're holding back," observed a deep voice from behind. Naruto turned to find the cyborg from the observation deck studying him with mechanical eyes that whirred slightly as they adjusted focus. "Genos, S-Class rank 14. The cyborg introduced himself formally. "Disciple of Saitama, Naruto Uzumaki." He offered a friendly bow. "And yes, I am. These machines weren't designed for my full capacity. And I'd rather not break your equipment on my first day." Genos processed this with literal mechanical precision. "Logical. My master often faces similar constraints." His expression remained neutral, but something like respect entered his tone. "The association has prepared special assessment areas for those beyond normal parameters. I've been asked to escort you there." The special SS meant area proved to be an isolated section of the facility reinforced with materials Naruto didn't recognize. Massive steel plates lined the walls, floor, and ceiling, covered with intricate circuitry that hummed with latent energy. "Impressive setup," Naruto commented. "Metal Knight's design," Genos explained. "Created after several S-Class heroes destroyed the standard facilities during their assessments. It can withstand approximately 87% of my master's serious attacks." Before Naruto could inquire about this mysterious master, a section of wall slid open to reveal a man with slicked back black hair wearing an immaculate white button-down shirt and black tie despite the testing environment. "Metal Bat couldn't make it, so I'm filling in," he announced without preamble. "King, S-Class rank 7. Despite his imposing physical appearance and confident stance, Naruto immediately sensed something unusual about this hero, an almost complete absence of combat energy masked by an extraordinary concentration of what could only be described as luck or coincidental fortune. It was the strangest aura he'd ever encountered. "Honor to meet you," Naruto said sincerely, fascinated by the paradox before him. King nodded stiffly. "The combat assessment has 3 phases: reaction, technique, and adaptability. I'll be operating the systems remotely." He pointed to a control booth embedded in one wall. "Don't hold back. These facilities are insured." Once King had sealed himself in the booth, the floor beneath Naruto's feet illuminated with a grid pattern. Mechanical sounds echoed rough the chamber as hidden compartments opened in the walls, ceiling, and floor. Combat assessment beginning in 3, 2, 1. What followed would later be described in hushed, reverent tones throughout the association's ranks. For 30 minutes, Naruto faced increasingly difficult challenges, from simple projectiles to complex robotic combatants, environmental hazards to simulated disaster scenarios. Throughout it all, he maintained perfect situational awareness, responding with precision that bordered on precognition. Most impressive wasn't his raw power, though that alone would have qualified him for S-Class, but his adaptability and restraint. Each response matched the threat exactly, never using excessive force yet never allowing damage to spread beyond necessary parameters. In the observation booth, King's perpetually stoic expression gave way to genuine awe as he pushed the system to its limits. Behind him, the door opened to admit Tatsumaki, who floated silently to watch the final phase. "I've never seen anything like this," King admitted without turning, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying Naruto's performance metrics. "He's not just reacting, he's predicting attack patterns before the system even generates them." Tatsumaki said nothing, her own expression unreadable as she watched Naruto dispatch 3 combat robots simultaneously with a technique that created miniature localized gravity wells, disabling their mobility without destroying them. "Impressive," she finally acknowledged, the reluctant admission clearly costing her pride. For someone who claims to be from another dimension. Quote, "You don't believe him?" King asked, glancing at her. "I believe he believes it," she replied carefully. "Whether it's true or he's just a powerful esper with delusions is another matter." On the testing floor, Naruto completed the final scenario, a simulated hostage situation involving multiple attackers and environmental hazards, without a single casualty, virtual or otherwise. As the system powered down, he stood calmly at the center of the room, not even breathing heavily despite the exertion. King's voice came through the speaker system, "Assessment complete. Performance exceeds measurement parameters in all categories." Naruto looked toward the observation booth and offered a small bow. "Thank you for the workout. Your systems are quite innovative." When he emerged from the testing chamber, he found not only King and Tatsumaki waiting, but several association officials including Sitch and a heavy-set man whose expensive suit strained at the seams. "Extraordinary," the large man proclaimed, stepping forward to extend his hand. "Absolutely extraordinary." Ajito McCoy, Executive Director of Hero Operations. "On behalf of the Hero Association, I'd like to officially welcome you to our ranks." Naruto accepted the handshake, noting the calculated firmness in the man's grip, a bureaucrat accustomed to managing powerful individuals through performative confidence. "Thank you, Director. I'm honored to serve however I can while I'm in your world." McCoy's smile widened. "Based on your performance metrics and yesterday's field demonstration, the qualification committee has unanimously recommended S-Class provisional status, effective immediately." This announcement produced visible reactions from everyone present, surprise from King, narrowed eyes from Tatsumaki, and barely concealed satisfaction from Sitch, who had clearly advocated for this outcome. "S-Class," Naruto repeated, genuinely surprised despite drive. Kushino's earlier prediction. "That's generous for someone without established history here." "Results speak for themselves," McCoy declared expansively. "The association was founded on meritocratic principles. Our combat performance exceeds 98% of current S-Class heroes, and your disaster response methodology demonstrates exceptional judgment." Naruto considered this carefully. While accelerated advancement contradicted his earlier statement about earning his place properly, he recognized the strategic advantage of operating with greater autonomy. S-Class status would provide access to information and sources crucial to understanding this world and the dimensional anomaly that brought him here. "I accept, with one condition," he said finally. McCoy's expression flickered briefly. Executives rarely appreciated conditions, but he maintained his affable demeanor. "Which is, probationary status until I've completed 5 major operations successfully. If I fail to meet S-Class standards in actual field performance, I'll accept whatever rank reassessment determines appropriate." The proposed compromise clearly surprised the director, who exchanged glances with Sitch before nodding slowly. "That's remarkably reasonable. I believe we can accommodate that arrangement." HMPH. Tatsumaki's dismissive sound drew attention. "At least he acknowledges rank should be earned. Most newcomers WOULD just take the promotion without question." Coming from her, this grudging acknowledgement constituted high praise indeed. "There's the matter of your hero name," Sitch interjected, consulting his tablet. "Marketing has already prepared several options based on your demonstrated abilities." "Marketing?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Standard procedure," McCoy explained. "Hero names become intellectual property of the association for merchandising purposes, though you retain veto rights." "What options did they suggest?" Naruto asked, more amused than concerned. Sitch scrolled through his tablet. "Golden Sage, Spiral Force, 6 Paths, Dimensional Warrior, and..." He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Whisker Face, apparently referencing your facial markings." Naruto laughed outright at the last suggestion. "I think I'll pass on Whisker Face." He considered for a moment. "In my world, I was sometimes called the Sage God. It wasn't a title I chose, but it described my connection to natural energy accurately enough." "Sage God," McCoy repeated, rolling the syllables experimentally. "Strong, distinctive, memorable for merchandising. I like it." And so, with surprisingly little ceremony, Naruto Uzumaki officially joined the Hero Association as S-Class Rank 17, provisional codenamed Sage God. The entire process, from arrival to certification, had taken less than 24 hours, unprecedented in the association's history and a testament to both his extraordinary abilities and the organization's recognition of a valuable asset. As the administrative details were finalized, Drive Kushino approached with barely contained excitement. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "Though I'm not surprised. Your performance was remarkable." "Thanks," Naruto replied. "Though I the real challenges are just beginning." She nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Speaking of which, the association has assigned you temporary quarters at S-Class Residential Facility U. Until more permanent arrangements can be made. I've taken the liberty of transferring your personal effects there." "Personal effects?" Naruto smiled wryly. "You mean the clothes I arrived in?" "Among other things," she acknowledged with a small smile of her own. "I've also prepared an information packet on this world, history, geography, cultural references, to help with your adjustment." This thoughtfulness touched him. "I appreciate that. It's been a while since I was the new guy trying to figure out the rules." Their conversation was interrupted by a strident alarm that echoed through the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing as Sitch's communication device emitted a series of urgent beeps. "Disaster alert," he announced, his professional demeanor instantly replacing the earlier congeniality. "Monster incursion in City F, multiple casualties reported. Preliminary classification. Demon level, potentially dragon." The atmosphere transformed instantly. King quietly excused himself. A tactical retreat Naruto noted but didn't judge, while Tatsumaki's energy flared visibly around her petite form. "Location," she demanded curtly. "Financial district," Sitch replied, checking his device. "Reports indicate multiple entities with coordinated attack patterns. Unusual for monster activity." McCoy turned to Naruto with unexpected intensity. "It seems your probationary period begins sooner than anticipated. Sage God, consider this your first official mission." Naruto nodded, his own demeanor shifting subtly as he accessed his battle awareness. "All require transportation." "Unnecessary," Tatsumaki interjected. "I'm responding personally. You can accompany me if you can keep up." Without waiting for response, she levitated higher and accelerated toward the exit, green energy trailing behind her. Naruto glanced at Drive Kushino, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Go. We'll handle the paperwork." With a grateful smile, Naruto focused briefly, his chakra flaring gall. Then as he shifted into a moderate level of sage mode. "I'll keep up," he assured Sitch, then vanished in a flash of yellow light that left behind only swirling air currents. "Remarkable," McCoy murmured, staring at the empty space. "Simply remarkable." Outside the facility, Tatsumaki streaked through the sky at velocities that would have torn apart normal human physiology. Her psychic barrier created a perfect aerodynamic shell around her diminutive form as buildings and landscape blurred beneath her. She'd deliberately chosen maximum speed, partly from legitimate urgency but also as a subtle test of the newest S-class hero's capabilities. Her competitive instinct was therefore somewhat annoyed when Naruto appeared effortlessly beside her, keeping perfect pace without apparent strain. Or irritating was his relaxed posture, arms crossed casually across his chest as he maintained horizontal orientation parallel to her flight path. "Interesting transportation technique," she observed coldly, accelerating further. "Teleportation. Something like that," Naruto replied, matching her increased velocity without effort. "The Flying Thunder God technique allows instantaneous movement between points I've marked with my chakra. For sustained travel like this, I'm using a variation that creates continuous forward markers." Despite herself, Tatsumaki found the explanation intriguing. Unlike most heroes whose powers were instinctive or technologically derived, Naruto's abilities seemed to follow systematic principles, almost like a science unto themselves. "The monsters we're facing," he continued, seamlessly transitioning to mission parameters, "what can you tell me about them?" Professional focus overcame her reflexive competitiveness. "Reports describe humanoid entities with unusual energy signatures. They're targeting specific buildings rather than causing random destruction, not typical monster behavior. Targeted attacks suggest intelligence and purpose," Naruto observed. "Any distinctive physical characteristics?" Witnesses mentioned black cloaks with red cloud patterns. This detail caused a visible reaction in Naruto, the first crack in his composed demeanor she'd witnessed. His eyes widened slightly, and the golden energy around him intensified. "Red clouds on black cloaks," he repeated, his tone suddenly tense. "Are you certain? That's what the reports said. Why? Does that mean something to you?" Naruto's expression had transformed completely, all casual friendliness replaced by focused intensity that radiated dangerous competence. "If it's who I think it is, we're not dealing with monsters. We're dealing with S-rank missing nin from my dimension. Specifically, what remains of an organization called Akatsuki." "Akatsuki." Tatsumaki pronounced the foreign word carefully. "You're saying these attackers followed you from your world?" "It's possible," Naruto acknowledged grimly. "The dimensional rift might have pulled others through. If Akatsuki remnants are here, their target isn't random. They're after something specific." This information changed the tactical scenario significantly. Tatsumaki, for all her abrasive personality, was a consummate professional when it came to hero work. "What are their capabilities?" "Depends on which members came through," Naruto explained as they approached City F's outskirts. "Each specialized in different techniques. All are extremely dangerous, particularly to opponents unfamiliar with chakra-based combat." The implied warning was clear: these enemies might pose unique challenges even to S-class heroes. Tatsumaki's pride bristled at the suggestion she might be vulnerable, but pragmatism prevailed. "Then I'll follow your lead initially. But don't mistake that for subordination." Naruto nodded, understanding perfectly the concession this represented from someone of her status and temperament. "Wouldn't dream of it." City F's financial district came into view, smoke rising from several locations. The distinctive skyscraper hosting the region's commodities exchange had partially collapsed, its lower floors crushed inward while upper sections tilted precariously. Civilians street reamed away from the area in panicked waves, guided by local police who appeared overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster. Tatsumaki descended toward the central plaza, establishing an aerial vantage point that provided maximum visibility. Naruto remained at her side, his senses extended far beyond normal perception as he searched for familiar chakra signatures. "There," he said suddenly, pointing toward a partially destroyed bank building. "Two signatures. One water-based, one clay-based explosive. How can you possibly know that from this distance?" Tatsumaki demanded. "Sage mode enhances sensory perception." Naruto explained briefly. "I can identify chakra types and individual signatures within a 5-kilometer radius." Before she could respond, a massive explosion erupted from the indicated building, sending concrete and glass shrapnel outward in a deadly wave. Tatsumaki instantly created a telekinetic barrier that protected civilians in the blast radius, while Naruto vanished in a yellow flash, reappearing directly in the explosion's epicenter. What followed demonstrated why he'd earned provisional S-class status so quickly. Using his truth-seeking orbs, Naruto created a perfect spherical shield that contained the worst of the blast. Simultaneously, he generated 3 shadow clones that rescued injured civilians from the collapsing structure, moving with such speed they appeared as golden blurs to normal perception. From her aerial position, Tatsumaki watched with grudging admiration as Naruto managed both containment and rescue without hesitation or wasted motion. His technique differed fundamentally from her own psychic abilities, yet achieved similar results through what appeared to be precise energy manipulation. As the explosion subsided, 2 figures emerged from the smoke, exactly as Naruto had predicted. Both wore tattered black cloaks decorated with faded red clouds, though their appearances contrasted dramatically. One had pale blue skin and shark-like features including gill-like facial markings, while the other appeared more conventionally human with long blonde hair partially covering a mechanical eye prosthetic. Well, the shark-like figure called out, his voice carrying an unsettling mixture of aggression and amusement. "If it isn't the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki himself. Fate has a sense of humor, doesn't it, Deidara?" The blonde figure, apparently Deidara, seemed less pleased by the encounter. "This complicates matters, We haven't fully adapted to this world's energy systems yet." Hoshigaki Kisame, Naruto identified the first figure, his tone level but laced with unmistakable authority. "And Deidara of Iwagakure. Both should be dead. Explanations would be appreciated." Kisame grinned, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. "Death becomes rather negotiable when dimensions fracture, Uzumaki. One moment we were enjoying oblivion, the next we found ourselves reconstituted in this strange world. He hefted an enormous bandage-wrapped sword onto his shoulder. Samahata and I aren't complaining about the second chance. Deidara's single visible eye narrowed. Though we appear to have arrived some time after you. You've changed, Jinchuriki. Your chakra is different. Many things have changed, Naruto replied. Including my patience for Akatsuki's schemes. Whatever you're planning in this world ends now. These people are under my protection. This declaration seemed to amuse Kisame greatly. Your protection? My, how the roles have reversed. His expression hardened suddenly. But you're mistaken if you think we're here for some grand Akatsuki resurrection. Our objectives are rather more immediate. With blinding speed, Kisame swung Samahata downward, not at Naruto but at the pavement beneath his feet. The legendary sword smashed through concrete into the subterranean level below, apparently his actual target. Simultaneously, Deidara flung a handful of tiny clay sculptures into the air. Katsu, he shouted, triggering their transformation into explosive birds that scattered in multiple directions. Naruto's response was instantaneous. 3 truth-seeking orbs expanded into thin shields that intercepted the explosive clay creatures, while he himself dropped through the hole Kisame had created, pursuing the shark-like ninja into whatever lay beneath the bank. Tatsumaki, observing from above, immediately recognized a diversion when she saw one. While Naruto pursued Kisame, Deidara's explosives were forcing her attention toward civilian protection. With a frustrated growl, she expanded her psychic barrier to encapsulate the flying clay bombs, creating a containment field that would limit collateral damage when they detonated. Clever, she muttered, redirecting the contained explosions upward where they could harm no one. But not clever enough. With her free hand, she reached out telekinetically toward Deidara himself, intending to immobilize him with her overwhelming psychic force. To her surprise, the blonde terrorist grinned as her power enveloped him. Interesting technique, he commented, seemingly unperturbed as her telekinesis lifted him from the ground. But ineffective against my art. His body suddenly bulged unnaturally, clay-like material separating from his actual form to reveal that what she'd captured was partially a clone constructed of explosive material. Katsu, he shouted again, his real body already retreating as the clay clone detonated. Tatsumaki's barrier held against the explosion, but the distraction had served its purpose. Deidara had gained distance and now stood atop a neighboring building, hands already working inside pouches at his waist, presumably crafting more explosive devices. Your abilities are impressive, he called to her. In my world, we'd call you a Kekkei Genkei user. But my art is still superior, Your art is just making things explode, Tatsumaki retorted, rising higher to maintain tactical advantage. Hardly impressive or original. This dismissal clearly struck a nerve. Deidara's visible eye widened in outrage. Just explosions. Just explosions. My art is transcendent. The perfect fleeting beauty of destruction itself. While he launched into an impassioned defense of explosive aesthetics, Tatsumaki utilized her psychic senses to locate Naruto and Kisame below ground. She CTED significant energy discharge in what appeared to be a reinforced vault beneath the bank, clearly their actual target rather than random destruction. What are they after? She murmured, maintaining her barrier while preparing a more decisive attack against the distracted Deidara. Below ground, Naruto faced Kisame in the bank's main vault, or what remained of it. The reinforced door had been sliced clean through, and safety deposit boxes lay scattered across the floor, many already emptied of their contents. Whatever you're looking for, it won't help you, Naruto stated, maintaining distance from Samahata, whose bandages had partially unwrapped to reveal the sword's scale-like surface hungrily absorbing ambient energy. Kisame chuckled, sorting through various items with casual disregard for their value. So judgmental, Uzumaki. We're simply acquiring resources necessary for survival in this dimension. Currency, identity documents, technology. He held up a small device Naruto recognized as a smartphone. This world's information systems are fascinating. So accessible compared to ours. You caused multiple casualties for a robbery. Naruto's voice hardened, golden chakra flaring brighter around him. That's beneath even Akatsuki's standards. Casualties were Deidara's artistic contribution, Not my preference, Kisame replied with disturbing nonchalance. Though I add, MIT watching this world's defenders scramble has been entertaining. Before you arrived, they sent some costumed weaklings against us. Hardly worth Samahata's effort. The implication that other heroes had already engaged and fallen to these interdimensional threats heightened Naruto's urgency. While Kisame appeared conversational, Naruto sensed the shark man was playing for time, but for what purpose remained unclear. How many of you came through? Naruto demanded, positioning himself between Kisame and the vault's exit. And who's coordinating your activities? Kisame's grin widened. Now that would be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say enough of us survived to make things interesting. He shifted his stance subtly, Samahata's hungry edge turning toward Naruto. Though I admit, I'm curious how much you've grown since our last encounter. Samahata remembers your chakra, and wants a taste of what you've become. Without further warning, Kisame launched forward with deceptive speed for his size. Samahata's edge whistling through the air toward Naruto's shoulder. The attack appeared straightforward but concealed multiple layers of technique, chakra-draining properties from the sword itself. Water nature chakra channeled through Kisame's arms to enhance cutting power, and subtle manipulation of humidity in the enclosed space to prepare for secondary techniques. Against a normal opponent, even an S-class hero from this world, such an attack would have been devastating. Against the Sage God, it was practically telegraphed. Naruto didn't dodge. Instead, as Samahata connected with his shoulder, the legendary sword found itself biting not into flesh but into pure natural energy so refined and potent that its absorption capability backfired spectacularly. The sword physically recoiled, scales bristling in what appeared to be pain as it drew in more energy than it could safely process. Samahata, Kisame exclaimed in genuine concern, quickly pulling the sword back. Its surface rippled unnaturally, the living weapon clearly distressed by whatever it had attempted to consume. Natural energy isn't compatible with Samahata's digestive system, Naruto explained calmly. In Sage mode, my chakra is perfectly balanced with the natural energy of this world. Try to absorb it, and the sword risks turning to stone, or worse. Kisame's expression shifted from surprise to calculating respect. You really have evolved beyond the brat we once hunted. He adjusted his grip on Samahata, which had wrapped its bandages protectively around itself. This might require a tactical adjustment. Or surrender, Naruto suggested, though without much hope. This world isn't ours to disrupt, Kisame. Whatever brought us here, we have a responsibility not to bring our conflicts into an innocent dimension. The shark nin's laugh held genuine amusement. Always the idealist. Some things never change. He performed a series of one-handed seals with practiced efficiency. But ideology makes poor armor against reality. Water style. Exploding water shock wave. The technique, normally requiring massive chakra expenditure, manifested with shocking scale in the confined space. Water erupted from Kisame's body in pressurized torrents, filling the vault and connected corridors with crushing force. The bank's substructure groaned ominously as water pressure threatened to burst through floors and walls. Rather than counter with an equally destructive technique, Naruto chose precision over power. A single truth-seeking orb expanded into a staff-like shape that he drove into the center of the aquatic maelstrom. Upon contact, the staff pulsed with golden energy that instantly converted the surrounding water from liquid to harmless vapor. Steam filled the chamber, momentarily obscuring visibility, which Naruto realized too late was Kisame's actual objective. When the vapor cleared seconds later, the shark nin had vanished, leaving behind only puddles of water and scattered valuables deemed not worth taking. Water clone great escape, Naruto muttered, recognizing the diversionary tactic. Classic Kisame. Extending his senses through Sage mode, he detected Kisame's distinctive chakra signature already moving rapidly away from the bank, rendezvousing with Deidara on a parallel trajectory. Both were retreating with coordinated precision that suggested pre-planned extraction routes. Naruto weighed pursuit against the immediate needs of the disaster zone. Casualties required attention, structural damage threatened additional injuries, and information needed to be conveyed to local authorities regarding the true nature of the monsters they faced. The decision was ultimately simple: protection over pursuit. Kisame and Deidara were now identified threats that could be tracked systematically. The immediate crisis demanded priority attention. With a series of hand seals, Naruto created 30 shadow clones that dispersed throughout the damaged district. Each assigned specific rescue and stabilization tasks. The original Naruto returned to the surface, where he found Tatsumaki single-handedly preventing a partially collapsed skyscraper from falling onto a crowded evacuation route. The strain showed even on her exceptional abilities. Sweat beaded on her forehead as telekinetic force countered thousands of tons of unstable concrete and steel. Without comment, Naruto joined her effort, extending his chakra into the structure itself, golden chains manifesting to bind critical support points while natural energy reinforced stressed materials. They're retreating, he informed her as they worked in unexpected synchronization. Kisame and Deidara, experienced tacticians. This was likely a resource-gathering mission, not their primary objective. Cowards, Tatsumaki muttered, though concentration on her telekinesis limited further commentary. Strategic, Naruto corrected. They recognized disadvantageous conditions and withdrew to preserve capability for their actual goals, whatever those may be. Working together, they stabilized the building sufficiently for complete civilian evacuation, their complementary abilities achieving in minutes what would have taken conventional emergency services hours. As the immediate threat subsided, Tatsumaki finally relaxed her telekinetic grip, floating down to eye level with Naruto. You knew them, she stated rather than asked, her penetrating gaze seeking confirmation of suspicions formed during the encounter. Yes, Naruto acknowledged. From my world, Kisame Hoshigaki was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist before joining Akatsuki, essentially an S-rank criminal organization. Deidara was a terrorist bomber before being recruited for his destructive capabilities. He paused, considering implications. Both were confirmed dead before I evolved into what I am now. Their presence here suggests the dimensional rift that brought me might have had broader effects than we realized. Tatsumaki processed this with surprising pragmatism. Your arrival destabilized dimensional boundaries, allowing others to cross over. That's one possibility, Naruto agreed. Or whatever CE pulled me here deliberately brought them as well. Either scenario is concerning. Emergency services had finally arrived in force, along with several lower-ranked heroes who immediately began coordinating with Naruto's clones on rescue operations. Media helicopters circled overhead, capturing footage of the newest S-class hero and the famous tornado of terror working together, a newsworthy even without interdimensional criminals. We should report this to Association headquarters, Tatsumaki decided, already rising into the air. If more of these Akatsuki are in our world, all S-class heroes need to be briefed on their capabilities. Naruto nodded, dispersing his remaining clones as local authorities established control over the disaster zone. The accumulated experiences ND information from each clone flowed back to him. 27 civilians rescued from immediately life-threatening situations, structural reinforcement applied to 6 buildings, and medical assistance provided to dozens of injured. Not a perfect outcome. There had been casualties before their arrival, but significantly better than what might have occurred without their intervention. As they departed, neither noticed a solitary figure observing from the shadowed alcove of a distant building. Dressed in traditional hakama and gi with a katana secured at her waist, she tracked their movement with eyes that reflected light oddly. Almost like a predator's. Her long black hair was pulled into a severe topknot that emphasized sharp, aristocratic features. Kaori Tatsugami, 32nd Generadio, Sword Master of the Tatsugami monster hunting clan, lowered the specialized binoculars through which she'd observed the entire confrontation. Her expression revealed nothing as she made mental notes of both the interdimensional intruders and the unusual golden-haired hero who had engaged them. Interesting, she murmured to herself, voice cultured but cold. Very interesting indeed. The Hero Association headquarters buzzed with unprecedented activity following the City F incident. Executives who normally delegated crisis response found themselves personally involved in assessment meetings. While the intelligence division worked overtime analyzing footage and eyewitness accounts of the interdimensional intruders. In the main S-class conference room, Naruto had spent the past hour briefing available heroes and senior staff on Akatsuki, their known members, typical tactics, and individual capabilities. A holographic display showed detailed renderings of identified threats, beginning with Kisame and Deidara but extending to potential additional members who might have crossed dimensions. Each Akatsuki member specializes in different techniques, Naruto explained, indicating the rotating images. Kisame Hoshigaki manipulates water and wields Samahata, a sentient sword that absorbs chakra, or this world's equivalent energies. Deidara creates explosive clay sculptures controlled remotely. Others have equally distinctive and dangerous abilities. How do we kill them? Asked Atomic Samurai bluntly, his hand resting on his katana's hilt. Conventional methods work, Naruto assured him. Despite their abilities, they remain fundamentally human, enhanced and extremely dangerous but not immortal. He paused thoughtfully. With certain exceptions, Hidan, if he crossed over, can survive dismemberment through a religious technique. And Kakuzu possessed multiple hearts that would each need to be destroyed separately. These details elicited various reactions from the assembled heroes, professional interest from veterans like Silver Fang, visible discomfort from Child Emperor despite his genius intellect, and barely contained excitement from Metal Bat, who clearly knew powerful opponents as welcome challenges. What's their objective in our world? Tatsumaki demanded, floating cross-legged above her designated seat rather than sitting in it conventionally. Uncertain, Naruto admitted. In our world, Akatsuki sought to capture tailed beasts, essentially living chakra constructs, to further their leader's plan for forced world peace through shared suffering. His expression darkened slightly at memories. That specific goal can't apply here since your dimension lacks tailed beasts, but their fundamental methodology remains consistent. Acquire resources, establish operational base. Develop intelligence on power structures, then execute targeted strikes to achieve maximum impact with minimal exposure. Sitch, representing association leadership, leaned forward with concern. You're suggesting they're currently in a preparatory phase for larger operations. Most likely, Naruto confirmed. Today's bank incident supports that assessment. They targeted valuable resources while testing local response capabilities. Their retreat wasn't defeat, it was data collection. This sobering analysis prompted Metal Knight to activate his remote attendance drone's communication function. Their interdimensional origin presents unique challenges to standard containment protocols. I propose immediate development of specific countermeasures based on energy signatures recorded during today's encounter. Child Emperor nodded agreement, already sketching designs on his tablet. I can modify my detection systems to identify chakra patterns if provided baseline reference data. I can help with that, Naruto offered. My shadow clones can provide multiple chakra signatures for your sensors to analyze, including variations in elemental affinity. As technical discussion continued, Dr. Kushino slipped into the room quietly, taking a position near the wall rather than interrupting. Naruto acknowledged her with a brief nod before returning Hi's attention to the strategic planning session. We should establish response teams with specific countermeasure training, Silver Fang suggested, his elderly appearance belying the sharp tactical mind that had made him a legendary hero. Based on Sage God's assessment of their varied abilities, different heroes will have natural advantages against specific Akatsuki members. Agreed, Naruto said. I'd be happy to provide specialized training sessions for interested heroes. While chakra itself requires extensive development to master, recognizing and countering its applications can be taught relatively quickly. This proposal generated immediate interest, particularly from heroes who specialized in technical combat rather than raw power. Even Atomic Samurai, initially skeptical of the interdimensional visitor, seemed intrigued by the possibility of expanding his already formidable sword techniques to counter new threats. As the meeting progressed toward specific action items, Naruto became aware of a subtle but persistent attention focused on him from the corridor outside the conference room. His heightened senses detected a presence deliberately concealing itself, not with chakra or technology, but through traditional physical discipline that minimized breathing, heartbeat, and body heat to near undetectable levels. Impressive for someone without chakra enhancement. Without drawing attention to his awareness, Naruto created an imperceptible shadow clone that slipped from the room during a moment when all eyes were on a tactical display. The clone circled through a jack-end corridors until it positioned itself behind the observer. If you wanted to join the meeting, the clone said quietly, the door is actually over there. The woman, for it was indeed a woman, didn't startle or even turn. Though a minute tensing of her shoulders revealed she hadn't detected the clone's approach. "I'm not authorized for S-class briefings," she replied, her voice controlled and formal. "I'm merely conducting independent assessment. Of me specifically, or the situation generally." This question finally prompted her to turn, revealing the same aristocratic features Naruto's clone recognized from the distant observation point in City F. Up close, her eyes were even more striking, amber irises with vertical pupils that seemed more feline than human. "Both," she acknowledged without pretense. "The Tatsumaki clan has maintained independent monster monitoring for 17 generations before the Hero Association existed. New entities with power classifications above drag on threshold fall under our observation protocols." The clone nodded thoughtfully. "And do I qualify as a monster under your clan's definition?" Her gaze remained steady, revealing nothing. "Classification remains pending. Your energy signature contains elements consistent with both heroic and monstrous paradigms. Your actions thus far align with protective protocols, but historical data suggest power concentrations of your magnitude inevitably trend toward corruption. This clinical assessment, delivered without hostility but with absolute conviction, might have offended a less secure individual." The clone merely smiled slightly. "You've been watching me since I arrived in this world." "Correct. And you were present during the City F incident." "Also correct. Yet you didn't intervene despite clearly possessing combat capability." The clone gestured subtly toward her katana, which radiated faint energy suggesting enhancement beyond conventional metallurgy. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across her features, professional pride, perhaps. Intervention was unnecessary while assessment remained incomplete. Preliminary data indicated you in Tornado W.E. sufficient to address the immediate threat. The clone considered this pragmatic approach with respect. "May I know your name, since you clearly know mine?" She hesitated briefly before answering. "Kaori Tatsugami, Master Rank Hunter of the Tatsugami clan. I hold no official position within the Hero Association hierarchy. Yet they allow you access to their headquarters. We have an arrangement," she explained vaguely. "Mutual information sharing under specific circumstances. Interdimensional incursion qualifies." Before the conversation could continue, the conference room door opened fully as the meeting concluded. Heroes filed out, many still discussing tactical applications of the information Naruto had provided. The original Naruto, spotting his clone engaged in conversation with the mysterious woman, approached directly. "Making friends?" he asked the clone with good-natured humor. "Getting acquainted," the clone corrected before dispelling itself, transferring its gathered information directly to the original. Naruto extended his hand formally to Kaori. "Naruto Uzumaki, though I understand you're already familiar with my file." She accepted the handshake with precise pressure and duration, neither overly familiar nor disrespectfully brief. "What file exists? Much remains undocumented regarding your capabilities and origins. Some of that is intentional," Naruto admitted candidly. "In my experience, complete transparency about one's abilities tends to be strategically unwise." This practical perspective seemed to earn a microscopic measure of respect from the stern-faced woman. The Tatsugami clan operates under similar principles. Their exchange was interrupted by Tatsumaki, who emerged from the conference room last and immediately noted the unfamiliar woman with poorly concealed suspicion. "Who's this?" she demanded, floating closer with arms crossed. "Kaori Tatsugami," Naruto introduced, sensing immediate tension between the women. "Independent monster hunter from a clan predating the association." Tatsumaki's eyes narrowed. "The isolationists who refuse official registration. I thought your clan didn't recognize association authority." "We recognize its utility while maintaining operational independence," Kaori replied with practiced diplomacy that nonetheless carried undertones of disdain. "Our methodologies and yours occasionally align, as with these interdimensional intruders." Before Tatsumaki could formulate what promised to be a scathing response, Drive Kushino approached the group with deliberate casualness that suggested intervention. "Mr. Uzumaki, if you have a moment, I've completed preliminary analysis of the dimensional energy readings from City F that you might find relevant." Naruto recognized the scientist's careful navigation of emerging interpersonal dynamics and accepted the conversational redirect. "Of course, Doctor, I'd be very interested in your findings. He turned to Kaori with polite formality. I hope we'll have opportunity to continue our discussion, Master Tatsugami. Your clan's perspective on these events could prove valuable. Kaori inclined her head slightly, the minimum acnal. DG meant courtesy required rather than enthusiastic agreement. The Tatsugami compound maintains communication protocols for relevant information exchange. I'll provide access coordinates to association liaison staff. With that precisely measured response, she turned and departed with fluid economy of movement that reflected lifetime martial training. Naruto noted both the deliberate control in her gait and the subtle readiness that never left her posture, a warrior perpetually prepared for threat response. Insufferable traditionalists, Tatsumaki muttered once Kaori was presumably out of earshot. They think their ancient monster-hunting lineage makes them superior to modern heroes. The Tatsugami clan has provided valuable historical context on several anomalous incidents. Drive. Kushino observed neutrally. Their archives contain monster classification data predating scientific documentation. Tatsumaki made a dismissive gesture. Ancient scrolls and family legends. Meanwhile, class heroes do the actual work of containing threats. She focused her intense gaze on Naruto. Don't be fooled by their mystical warrior act. They observe and judge but rarely intervene unless their specific interests are threatened. Rather than immediately accept either characterization, Naruto considered what he'd observed directly. She seems genuinely committed to protection, just through different methodologies than the association employs. Multiple approaches to similar problems can be complementary rather than contradictory. This diplomatic assessment earned an approving nod from Dr. Kushino and an eye roll from Tatsumaki, who clearly considered it naively optimistic. Speaking of complementary approaches, the scientist interjected smoothly, the energy readings from your encounter with the Akatsuki members revealed something fascinating. When your chakra and tornado's psychic energy operated in proximity, they created harmonic resonance patterns that amplified both ECTS without increasing raw power output. This observation caught both heroes' attention for different reasons. Naruto from scientific curiosity about interdimensional energy interactions, Tatsumaki from tactical interest in combat efficiency. Amplification without increased expenditure. Tatsumaki clarified, professional interest temporarily overriding her prickly demeanor. That contradicts established psychic resonance principles. Normally proximity to other energy users creates interference patterns requiring compensation. Dr. Kushino nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Yet the data OWS clear constructive interference when your psychic barriers operated within 3 meters of Sage God's chakra constructs. Efficiency increased approximately 37% during the building stabilization sequence. I felt something similar. Naruto confirmed, recalling the unexpected synchronization during their joint effort. Like our energies were naturally aligning rather than competing for dimensional space. The implications of this discovery extended beyond academic interest. If different energy systems from separate dimensions could harmonize rather than conflict, entirely new tactical approaches became possible. Joint operations leveraging complementary abilities could significantly enhance overall effectiveness against interdimensional threats like Akatsuki. I'd like to conduct rolled testing to better understand the mechanism. Drive. Kushino suggested. If you're both willing to participate in laboratory analysis. I don't have time for laboratory games, Tatsumaki interrupted. Though with less hostility than might have been expected. But, I suppose combat efficiency data has practical value. This grudging acknowledgement represented significant concession from Somio. Nay, notorious for rejecting collaborative approaches. Before arrangements could be discussed further, Naruto's newly issued association communicator emitted an alert tone. The message displayed was BR-IEF but consequential. Quarters assigned. S-Class Residential Complex, East Wing, Suite 7. Security clearance transmitted. Report for biometric registration at convenience. Looks like I have an official address now, he commented. Showing the screen to Dr. Kushino. East Wing is newly constructed, she informed him. Designed specifically for heroes with energy manipulation capabilities. The containment systems should comfortably accommodate your power signature without restrictive damping. Thoughtful, Naruto acknowledged, genuinely appreciative of the consideration. I was concerned. about accidentally damaging standard housing during meditation cycles. Tatsumaki, who maintained a similar specialized residence within the complex, appeared momentarily disconcerted by the prospect of having the interdimensional visitor as a neighbor. Her expression suggested calculations regarding privacy, territorial considerations, and professional boundaries. The East Wing units are adequately isolated, she finally stated, apparently having resolved her internal debate. Just remember that energy discharge above level 3 requires notification through the central system. Some of us prefer not to have our meditation interrupted by unexpected power fluctuations. This information, delivered as criticism, actually represented significant accommodation from someone who typically insisted on complete environmental control. Naruto recognized the implicit acceptance and responded with appropriate gravity. "I'll be sure to file proper notifications," he assured her. "My meditatio and techniques are generally self-contained, but dimensional harmonization might cause temporary resonance patterns." This technically accurate description also served as subtle reminder that his abilities operated on principles distinct from this world's energy classifications, a point Tatsumaki acknowledged with a fractional nod before changing subjects. "The association is organizing training sessions for B-class and above heroes based on your Akatsuki briefing," she informed him. "As Provisional S-class, you're expected to participate in knowledge transfer regarding interdimensional threats." Of course, Naruto agreed readily. Though effective training will require practical demonstration, not just theoretical explanation. Chakra-based techniques have distinctive signatures that defenders need to recognize instinctively. Dr. Kushino made notes on her tablet. "I'll coordinate with training division to establish appropriate protocols. Given the diversity of hero abilities, individualized approaches may prove more effective than standardized programs." As administrative details were arranged, Naruto reflected on how quickly this new world had integrated him into its defensive infrastructure, from dimensional anomaly to essential resource in less than 48 hours. The pragmatism demonstrated by both the association and individual heroes suggested extensive experience with adaptation to unexpected threats. That adaptability would prove crucial in the coming confrontation with Akatsuki, whose members had always excelled at exploiting unfamiliar environments and opponents. Even without their original objective of capturing tailed beasts, they represented a significant danger to this unprepared dimension. As if sensing his thoughts, Tatsumaki fixed him with her penetrating gaze. "These Akatsuki, you defeated them in your world, correct?" Eventually, Naruto confirmed, memories of hard-won victories and painful losses surfacing briefly. Though at considerable cost, they were responsible for many deaths before their organization was finally dismantled. "Then we'll just have to be more efficient this time," she stated with characteristic bluntness. "Our knowledge combined with our capabilities should prove sufficient." The confidence wasn't merely bravado. Naruto had witnessed enough of this world's S-class heroes to recognize legitimate power. Different from chakra users but formidable nonetheless, with specializations and techniques that would present novel challenges to opponents accustomed to shinobi combat paradigms. "I believe you're right," he agreed. Though preparation remains essential. As their impromptu conference concluded and they moved toward respective responsibilities, none of the three noticed the small mechanical drone that had monitored their entire conversation from a maintenance duct overhead. Its optical sensors tracked their departure before it detached from its observation point and scuttled through ventilati on systems toward a secure transmission location. Miles away, in a fortified underground facility, General Kuro watched the recorded footage with calculated interest. His uniform bore no national insignia, though its design suggested military authority from a government that preferred operational deniability to public accountability. "Fascinating," he commented to the assembled analysts. "Interdimensional visitors with energy manipulation capabilities beyond conventional classification." His scarred fingers tapped thoughtfully against the polished conference table. "And the Hero Association has already begun integration protocols." Quote, "Their response efficiency is impressive," acknowledged his chief scientific advisor, a severe woman whose laboratory coat displayed evidence of recent chemical exposure. "Particularly regarding the energy harmonization discovery, which presents both opportunity and complication for our own objectives," General Kuro observed. "Accelerate Project Chakra synthesis accordingly." If dimensionally displaced criminals can utilize these techniques effectively, our enhanced soldiers certainly can. The implications hung unspoken but understood among his street AFF. The power demonstrated by both Naruto and the Akatsuki members represented potential military applications beyond conventional weaponry. Whoever successfully harnessed such capabilities would gain significant advantage in the ongoing shadow conflicts between nations that continued despite public cooperation against monster threats. Maintain surveillance on both the Sage God and these Akatsuki elements. Kuro instructed his intelligence director. All data as priority classification Omega Black. His expression hardened slightly, and accelerate special forces training for the chakra adaptation program. If these interdimensional elements destabilize global security, we must be prepared to intervene decisively. The unambiguous threat in his final word required no elaboration. In a world already balanced precariously between human advancement and monstrous evolution, the introduction of interdimensional powers threatened to tip scales in unpredictable directions. General Kuro's organization existed precisely to manage such destabilizing factors, through cooperation when possible, through elimination when necessary. Naruto Uzumaki, newly designated Sage God of the Hero Association, had unknowingly acquired another observer beyond the official structures and traditional clans already monitoring his activities. Whether this observation would ultimately prove benign or hostile remained to be determined. The pieces were moving on a multidimensional chessboard, and the game was just beginning. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, The Way of the Sage. 2 weeks after his arrival in this new dimension, Naruto stood before the Hero Association's executive board in their private conference chamber. The room, located on the uppermost floor of headquarters, featured panoramic OWS overlooking City a deliberate architectural choice that reminded decision-makers of the world they were tasked with protecting. 7 executives occupied the horseshoe-shaped table, with Ajito McCoy at its center position. The Sage Division, Naruto concluded his presentation, Golden Chakra manifesting as a miniature 3-dimensional model of his proposed organizational structure. A Spec, idealized unit focused on interdimensional threats, energy harmonization research, and training protocols for heroes facing chakra-based opponents. McCoy leaned forward, jowls compressed against his starched collar. Ambitious. The association hasn't established a new division since the Paranormal Science Unit 5 years ago. Circumstances warrant innovation, Naruto replied calmly. Akatsuki R.E. presents just one category of interdimensional threat. The rift that brought me here has fundamentally altered the barrier between worlds. We should expect additional incursions. A thin executive W.Ho's nameplate identified him as Director Shibabawa adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. The proposal mentions significant resource requirements. Dedicated facilities, specialized equipment, personnel reassignments. All necessary, Naruto confirmed without apology. Half measures against S-rank missing nin would be worse than no measures at all. Every Akatsuki member possesses capabilities that could devastate entire cities if deployed strategically. Like we saw in City F, McCoy acknowledged grimly. The attack 2 weeks prior had resulted in 17 civilian deaths and property damage, exceeding 50 billion yen. Despite being merely what Naruto had characterized as a resource-gathering operation, rather than Akatsuki's full offensive capacity. Precisely. And that was just 2 members acting conservatively. The only female executive, a steel-haired woman named Director Hibiki, tapped manicured nails against the tabletop. Your proposed personnel roster includes significant talent reassignment. Dr. Kushino's entire research team, 4 A-class heroes for permanent attachment, rotating S-class advisory positions. She raised a skeptical eyebrow. Metal Knight has already registered formal objection to having his resources diverted. Metal Knight's technological approach, while impressive, has fundamental limitations against chakra-based threats, Naruto explained diplomatically. His drones registered Kisame and Deidara as conventional energy signatures, missing the dimensional harmonics that distinguish chakra from this world's power systems. And you believe your Sage Division can overcome these limitations? Asked Shibabawa. I know it can, Naruto replied with quiet confidence that carried more weight than bombastic certainty would have. Because I'm not starting from theoretical models. I've spent decades combating these exact threats. The executives exchanged glances, communicating unspoken assessments through minute facial cues develope. Over years of collaborative decision-making. McCoy finally nodded almost imperceptibly, then addressed Naruto directly. The association exists to protect humanity from extraordinary threats. If SA interdimensional incursions represent a new category of danger, adaptation is necessary. He straightened papers before him with deliberate movements. Provisional approval granted, with quarterly performance reviews and budget reassessment after 6 months. Thank you, Naruto said, bowing slightly in acknowledgement. I'll begin implementation immediately. One condition, McCoy added, raising a finger. Given your provisional S-class status and the specialized nature of this division, we're assigning an association liaison with established organizational history. Someone to help navigate internal protocols while you focus on operational matters. Naruto nodded agreeably. Sensible. Who did you have in mind? The boardroom door opened as if on cue, admitting Drive. Hinami Kushino. Her typical laboratory attire had been replaced by a more formal suit, though the rectangular glasses and tablet remained constant accessories. Dr. Kushino has requested the assignment specifically, McCoy explained. As head of Paranormal Science Division, she brings relevant expertise and administrative experience. Her division will maintain independent operation while establishing collaborative protocols with your Sage division. Naruto smiled genuinely at the scientist. I'd welcome Drive Kushino's involvement. Her insights have already proven valuable during my adjustment period. Hinami adjusted her glasses with a finger. A habitual gesture that didn't quite mask her pleased expression. The research opportunities are unprecedented. Interdimensional energy harmonics represent an entirely new field of study with practical applications beyond theoretical interest. Then it's settled, McCoy declared, standing to indicate the meeting's conclusion. Requisition orders will be processed through standard channels. Dr. Kushino will assist with administrative integration. He extended his hand to Naruto. Welcome officially to the association's leadership structure, Sage God. As the executives filed out, Naruto and Hinami remained behind, examining the holographic model still hovering above the conference table. The organizational structure resembled a modified version of Konoha's Anbu system, adapted to this world's hero hierarchy and civilian integration requirements. Impressive presentation, Hinami commented once they were alone. The energy projection model convey yet complex information more effectively than conventional diagrams would have. I've learned that visual representation often communicates more clearly than verbal explanation alone, Naruto replied. Especially when dealing with concepts outside normal experience. She nodded, making notes on her ever-present tablet. Speaking of which, the facility allocation has been finalized. You've been granted the Eastern Research Complex, the one previously designated for Metal Knight's expansion project. Naruto winced slightly. That won't improve his opinion of the initiative. Metal Knight rarely operates on-site anyway. Hinami observed with pragmatic dismissal. His remote systems can function from any secured facility. The Eastern Complex's isolated location and existing security infrastructure make it ideal for chakra research and training programs. They exited the boardroom together, proceeding toward the executive elevator. As they walked, Naruto studied his new official liaison with thoughtful curiosity. Despite 2 weeks of regular interaction during his integration process, Hinami Kushino remained something of an enigma, professionally transparent but personally guarded. Her dedication to scientific discovery was evident, yet the motivations driving that dedication remained obscure. May I ask a personal question? He ventured as they entered the elevator. She glanced up from her tablet with slight surprise. Of course. Why did you request this assignment specifically? The Paranormal Science Division already has significant research obligations. The question seemed to catch her off guard. She hesitated before answering, her typically efficient demeanor momentarily uncertain. Scientific curiosity would be the expected answer. But not the complete one, Naruto observed gently. Hinami removed her glasses, polishing them with a cloth from her pocket, a delaying tactic that allowed her to compose her thoughts. My parents were killed during the Tentacled Terror incident 12 years ago. I was 17, just accepted to university on full scholarship. She replaced her glasses precisely. The monster attacked their research facility specifically, targeting their dimensional physics project. No one understood why at the time. Understanding dawned. But you think it might be connected to the dimensional instabilities we're studying now? She nodded, professional composure returning though her eyes remained shadowed with old grief. Their research notes mentioned energy pattern anomalies similar to what we observed during your arrival. Nothing so dramatic as an actual interdimensional rift, but harmonic resonances that shouldn't have existed within standard physics models. And you believe their work might have been detecting early symptoms of dimensional weakening. It's a working hypothesis, she confirmed. One I've pursued through academic channels initially, then through the association after conventional scientific institutions deemed it too speculative. Her expression hardened with quiet determination. If interdimensional incursions have been occurring at smaller scales for years, understanding the mechanism Beck owns not just academically interesting but existentially necessary. The elevator doors opened to reveal the main lobby, bustling with hero and administrative activity. As they exited, Naruto sighed. Read this new information. Not just its factual content but its implications for understanding his liaison better. Hinami's scientific detachment masked personal motivation rooted in loss and unresolved questions. Her interest in his abilities and origin wasn't merely professional curiosity but part of a longer quest for answers to tragedy. Thank you for sharing that, he said simply as they navigated through the crowded space. Understanding your perspective helps me approach our collaboration more effectively. She seemed briefly surprised by this response, perhaps having expected either D.'s missive comfort or exploitative interest in her research. Instead, Naruto's acknowledgement respected both her professional contribution and personal motivation without attempting to diminish either. The Eastern Complex has been secured for immediate occupancy, she continued after a moment, transitioning back to operational matters with visible relief. Basic infrastructure is functional, though specialized equipment will require custom installation. I've taken the liberty of drafting requisition orders for essential components. Excellent, Naruto replied, allowing the conversational shift. When can we begin the transfer process? Transportation is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I've already notified the personnel selected for reassignment. Their conversation paused as they reached the building's main entrance, where unexpected commotion had drawn a crowd of association employees. Through the glass doors, a distinctive black limousine with heavily tinted windows had arrived, surrounded by uniformed security bearing non-standard weapons. The vehicle's doors remained closed, but its mere presence had created visible tension among headquarters staff. Blizzard Group, Hinami identified softly. Fubuki rarely visits headquarters officially. Something significant must have prompted this appearance. Naruto recalled previous mentions of Tatsumaki's younger sister, leader of the B-class hero faction that operated with unusual independence and organizational structure compared to typical heroes. According to association briefing materials, Fubuki maintained a quasi-corporate approach to heroism, with subordinate B-class heroes functioning almost as employees within her structured hierarchy. The limousine door finally opened, revealing a striking woman whose physical appearance immediately suggested familial relationship to Tatsumaki despite significant stylistic differences. Where the elder Esper's sister projected intense, uncompromising power through minimalist presentation, Fubuki cultivated deliberate elegance, a tailored white fur coat over a form-fitting black dress, accessorized with tasteful jewelry that likely contained functional enhancement properties rather than merely decorative elements. Her entrance created immediate ripples through the assembled onlookers. Unlike her sister's floating locomotion, Fubuki walked conventionally, though with graceful confidence that commanded attention. Her security detail, two men in black suits whose physical presence suggested combat training beyond typical bodyguards, flanked her protectively despite the presumably safe environment. Interesting timing, Hinami murmured. Blizzard Group has avoided association headquarters since their territory dispute with the Tank Top Army 3 months ago. Before Naruto could inquire further, Fubuki's gaze locked directly onto him across the lobby. Without hesitation, she altered her trajectory to approach them directly, her security detail adjusting smoothly to the change in direction. Association employees parted before her with a mixture of respect and wariness that spoke volumes about her reputation. Sage God, she greeted formally as she reached them. Her voice cultured and controlled. I believe we're overdue for an introduction. Naruto inclined his head respectfully. Fubuki, I've heard interesting things about your Blizzard group. A.S. Uddle's smile curved her lips, professional rather than genuine. All positive, I hope. Varied, he replied diplomatically. But notably consistent regarding your organizational effectiveness. This carefully balanced response seemed to meet her approval. She turned slightly to acknowledge Hinami with a polite nod. Dr. Kushino, your research continues to generate discussion in specialized circles. Miss Fubuki, Hinami returned with equal formality. The Blizzard Group's field data has been helpful in several recent analyses. The exchange of pleasantries completed, Fubuki returned her attention to Naruto. I understand you've been granted approval for a specialized division within the association structure. Quite an achievement for someone who arrived in our world less than a month ago. The statement carried multiple layers: acknowledgement of his rapid advancement, implied question about his methods, and subtle indication that she maintained information sources within the association's executive level. Necessity drives innovation, Naruto responded evenly. Interdimensional threats require specialized countermeasures. Indeed, her gaze became more evaluative. Which is precisely why I've come to propose a collaborative arrangement between your nascent division and my established organization. This direct approach surprised Naruto, though he maintained neutral expression. Association briefings had characterized Fubuki as strategically cautious, typically preferring to observe new developments extensively before committing resources. An interesting proposal, he acknowledged. Though the Sage Division's operational parameters are still being finalized, which makes this the optimal time to establish beneficial partnerships, she countered smoothly. The Blizzard Group maintains extensive intelligence networks beyond official association channels. Information that could prove valuable regarding your Akatsuki adversaries. The specific reference to Atsuki confirmed Naruto's suspicion that her intelligence sources were indeed comprehensive. Few outside the S-class briefing sessions had access to detailed information about the interdimensional criminals. Perhaps we should discuss this in more appropriate surroundings, he suggested, noting the continued attention their conversation attracted from nearby association personnel. Fubuki nodded approvingly at his discretion. My car is waiting, unless you have pressing obligations. Naruto glanced at Hinami, who checked her tablet before responding. Your schedule is clear until the equipment review at 1500 hours. Then I'd be happy to continue our conversation in more private settings, he told Fubuki. Her security detail moved with practiced efficiency as they escorted them outside to the waiting limousine. The vehicle's interior proved as luxurious as its exterior suggested: leather seating, privacy partition, and subtle technological enhancements that likely include both communications systems and defensive capabilities. As they settled into the spacious rear compartment, Fubuki dismissed her security to the front section with a casual gesture. When the partition closed, sealing them in privacy, her demeanor shifted subtly, still professional but less performatively formal. You've made quite an impression on the association, she observed as the vehicle pulled smoothly away from headquarters. S-class provisional status, division leadership, resource allocation that seasoned heroes have fought years to obtain. Extraordinary circumstances, Naruto replied with deliberate humility. The interdimensional threat justified exceptional measures. Perhaps, she acknowledged, though in my experience, the association rarely responds so efficiently to emergent threats without additional motivation. Her gaze sharpened slightly, such as the unprecedented energy readings your arrival generated. Readings that caused significant disturbance in certain specialized detection systems. This specific knowledge confirmed Naruto's growing realization that Fubuki's intelligence capabilities extended beyond conventional networks. Your organization maintains dimensional monitoring equipment. Quote, a calculated pause before she answered. The Blizzard Group's interests are diverse. Paranormal phenomena often correlate with monster emergence patterns. A practical focus, Naruto commented neutrally, recognizing her reluctance to reveal specific capabilities. Though dimensional monitoring typically requires substantial technical infrastructure, we have resources beyond our official classification would suggest, she replied with delicate emphasis that conveyed volumes about her organization's actual versus public operational capacity. The conversation continued in this vein as the limousine traveled through City A's exclusive business district, each participant offering carefully measured information while assessing the other's responses. Naruto recognized the familiar dance of diplomatic negotiation, reminiscent of his experiences with clan leaders and village representatives during his years as Hokage and afterward as diplomatic envoy. Fubuki possessed impressive political acumen for someone officially ranked as merely a B-class hero. Her questions revealed sophisticated understanding of association power structures, resource allocation mechanisms, and operational constraints, knowledge that extended well beyond what her position should have afforded her. Your proposed collaboration, Naruto eventually steered the conversation toward its original purpose. What specific arrangement did you envision? The limousine had reached its apparent destination, a modernist building whose glass facade reflected the afternoon sunlight. The discreet logo etched into its entrance identified it as Blizzard Group headquarters, though nothing about its external appearance suggested connection to heroic activities. Perhaps best discussed while I show you our operation, Fubuki suggested as the vehicle stopped. Seeing our capabilities directly will provide better context than abstract description. Inside, the building reveal. Ed itself is a sophisticated command center disguised as a conventional corporate office. The reception area maintained the business facade with tasteful furnishings and professional staff, but beyond the security checkpoint, the true nature of the organization became apparent. Multiple floors contained specialized departments, intelligence analysis, combat training facilities, medical treatment centers, and technology development labs. The scale and quality of the operation far exceeded what a B-class hero organization should have been capable of maintaining, confirming Naruto's suspicion. Fubuki's resources extended well beyond her official association allocation. Impressive infrastructure, he observed as she led him through a monitoring center where technicians tracked monster activity across multiple cities. Your operation more closely resembles an independent agency than a hero group. Necessity drove evolution, she explained, echoing his earlier phrasing with subtle acknowledgement. The association's structural limitations regarding B-class operations required organizational innovation. The carefully diplomatic description masked what Naruto recognized as a fundamental philosophical difference. Fubuki had created an alternative power structure when the established system failed to accommodate her vision. Rather than struggle within existing constraints, she built something parallel that served similar ends through different means. Their tour concluded in a private office whose minimalist design emphasized functionality over status display. As they seated themselves in the conversation area, Fubuki finally addressed her proposal directly. My organization can provide your Sage Division with intelligence resources beyond association capacity, specifically regarding anomalous energy signatures matching the dimensional patterns of your Akatsuki adversaries. She activated a holographic display embedded in the coffee table between them. Over the past 2 weeks, we've detected 7 distinct events consistent with the chakra signature baseline established during the City F incident. The display showed a map with incident locations marked chronologically. Naruto studied it with increased interest, recognizing a pattern that suggested methodical territory assessment rather than random movement. They're establishing operational perimeters, he observed, gathering environmental data while testing local response capabilities. Fubuki nodded, clearly pleased by his quick analysis. Precisely our assessment. The pattern indicates I see intelligence gathering rather than immediate aggressive intent. This information is valuable, Naruto acknowledged. Why share it with me rather than the association directly? Her expression revealed calculated candor. The association's bureaucratic structure imposes information compartmentalization that often impedes effective response. Your Sage Division represents potential for more nimble operational capability. She paused before adding, and frankly, you've demonstrated both power and judgment rare among S-class heroes. This last comment contained subtle comparison to Tatsumaki. Though Fubuki carefully avoided directly criticizing her sister, the implied contrast nonetheless highlighted the younger Esper's perception of her sibling's temperamental approach versus her own methodical strategy. Your offer is generous, Naruto responded thoughtfully. Though I assume reciprocal information sharing would be expected. Naturally, she confirmed. Mutually beneficial exchange. Your understanding of chakra-based threats combined with our monitoring network creates synergistic capability neither could achieve independently. The proposal made tactical sense. Fubuki's our organization clearly possessed intelligence gathering capabilities that would complement the Sage Division's specialized knowledge. However, Naruto recognized the political implications of establishing direct partnership with an organization that maintained complicated relationship with the association's official hierarchy. Implementation would require careful consideration, he observed. The SA-GE division operates within association structure, with corresponding obligations and reporting requirements. Of course, Fubuki acknowledged smoothly. I'm proposing information exchange, not operational merger. Discreet collaboration rather than formal alliance. The distinction represented elegant compromise, allowing cooperative benefit without forcing either party to modify existing organizational commitments. It demonstrated Fubuki's political sophistication and pragmatic approach to achieving objectives within systemic constraints. I'd need to establish appropriate protocols, Naruto said. Neither accepting nor rejecting outright. Information security and verification standards would be essential for effective collaboration. Absolutely. Fubuki seemed pleased by his careful consideration rather than disappointed by lack of immediate agreement. I would expect nothing less from someone establishing a division focused on such sensitive matters. As their meeting concluded, and arrangements were made for follow-up communication. Naruto recognized that beyond the tactical proposal, this encounter represented Fubuki's assessment of him as potential ally, rival, or threat within the complex hero ecosystem. Her approach, direct yet diplomatic, revealing capability while maintaining strategic ambiguity, reflected sophisticated political calculation. Whether her interest stemmed primarily from organizational advantage, personal curiosity about dimensional phenomena, or more complex motivations remained to be determined. What seemed clear was that Blizzard Group represented another significant player in the evolving response to interdimensional incursion, one with resources and intelligence that could prove either valuable ally or concerning complication. The Eastern Research Complex sprawled across 30 acres of isolated terrain 20 miles from City A. Originally constructed as contingency headquarters during the period of intense monster activity 3 years prior. The facility had since been repurposed for specialized research and training. Its concrete bunkers and reinforced laboratory spaces now bore the newly established Sage Division insignia. A stylized spiral pattern surrounding a natural energy symbol derived from Mount Myoboku's ancient writings. 3 days after officially acquiring the facility, Naruto stood in the central courtyard. Supervising his association personnel and his own shadow clones' coordinated equipment installation. The scale of operation impressed even him. Dozens of specialized sensors being calibrated, training areas modified with chakra-responsive materials, and laboratory spaces reconfigured for dimensional research. The harmonization chamber installation is complete, reported one of his clones, Dispel Ling itself after delivering its information. The accumulated experience transferred instantly to Naruto. Technical specifications, calibration procedures, and minor adjustments required for optimal functionality. Across the courtyard, Drive, Kushino directed a team installing specialized containment systems designed to safely channel and study chakra manifestations. Her typically reserved demeanor had given way to enthusiastic focus as the division transformed from administrative concept to operational reality. Dr. Kushino appears to be enjoying herself, observed a familiar voice from behind him. Naruto turned to find Tatsumaki hovering at his shoulder height, arms crossed in her characteristic pose. Unlike her usual approach of announcing presence through demanding statements, she had arrived quietly, almost conversationally. She's in her element, Naruto agreed, noting this unusual behavior without commenting directly. The research opportunities align perfectly with her specialization. Tatsumaki surveyed the bustling activity with evaluative gaze. The association moved with uncharacteristic efficiency implementing your division. McCoy typically requires months of procedural review before allocating resources at this scale. Interdimensional threats create motivational focus, Naruto replied diplomatically, though he recognized the implicit question about his rapid advancement within the organizational hierarchy. Her noncommittal response conveyed skepticism without direct accusation. After a moment of observation, she continued, I understand you met with my sister recently. The statement contained carefully controlled neutrality that nevertheless suggested significant interest in his response. Naruto chose honesty over political calculation. Yes, Fubuki approached me regarding potential information sharing between the Sage Division and Blizzard Group. She has impressive intelligence gathering capabilities. Tatsumaki's expression tightened minutely. Fubuki excels at building systems and networks. She always preferred working through others rather than developing her own capabilities. The comment revealed complex sibling dynamics. Akno. Acknowledgement of Fubuki's organizational talent coupled with implied criticism of her approach to power development. Naruto recognized the deeper currents beneath the surface assessment. Different approaches to similar objectives. He observed neutrally. Her methodology seems well suited to information acquisition and analysis. Perhaps, Tatsumaki conceded with unusual restraint. After a brief silence, she shifted topics with characteristic directness. The association has assigned me as S-Class Liaison to your division for the Chakra Countermeasure training program. This information surprised Naruto slightly. Voluntary assignment or executive decision? Does it matter? Context often clarifies expectation, he replied evenly. She considered this before answering. I requested the assignment. Your energy harmonization theory proved accurate during field testing. The efficiency improvement justifies investment in training compatibility. This surprisingly practical assessment represented significant evolution from her initial suspicious approach to his arrival. That Tatsumaki had voluntarily requested assignment to his division suggested genuine professional respect had developed beneath her prickly exterior. I appreciate your involvement, Naruto said sincerely. The harmonization effect we've observed could provide tactical advantage against Akatsuki members, particularly those specializing in large-scale techniques. Tatsumaki nodded, her gaze sweeping the facility with tactical assessment. When does the training program commence? 3 days, once the specialized chambers are fully calibrated. We'll start with basic chakra recognition protocols before advancing to active countermeasures. I'll return then, she stated decisively. Send the detailed schedule to my association communicator. As she prepared to depart, Naruto noticed something uncharacteristic: hesitation. Tatsumaki typically entered and exited conversations with absolute certainty. Yet now she seemed momentarily caught between departure and continued interaction. Was there something else? He asked, careful to keep his tone neutral rather than presumptive. She appeared to debate internally before responding. Reliable intelligence sources indicate unusual atmospheric disturbances in the mountains north of City F. Energy signatures inconsistent with typical monster activity. Her gaze met his directly. Similar to dimensional fluctuations recorded during your arrival. This information carried significant implications, potential additional incursions or interdimensional activity beyond known Akatsuki movements. Equally notable was Tatsumaki's decision to share this intelligence personally rather than through official channels. Thank you, Naruto responded, understanding the professional courtesy this represented. I'll investigate immediately. She nodded once, decisively, then ascended without further comment, her typical abrupt departure style returning. After the momentary conversational uncertainty, Naruto watched her disappear into the afternoon sky, thoughtful consideration in his expression. Her behavior showed subtle but meaningful evolution, initial hostile suspicion to professional respect and now something approaching collaborative partnership. The progression suggested developing trust that transcended mere tactical convenience. Interesting interaction, commented Hinami, who had approached during their conversation's conclusion. Tornado rarely engages in voluntary information sharing outside official mission parameters. People are often more complex than their public personas suggest, Naruto observed, turning his attention to the scientist. How are the calibrations progressing? On schedule. The primary harmonized ion chamber will be operational by tomorrow evening. She consulted her tablet briefly. Regarding those atmospheric disturbances Tornado mentioned, our satellite monitoring confirms anomalous readings. Consistent with dimensional thinning rather than breakthrough. Different signature pattern from your arrival or the Akatsuki incidents. Different source, then, Naruto concluded. Potentially more concerning than known quantities. Agreed. I've taken the liberty of preparing an expedition package, transportation, portable sensing equipment, communication array. Her efficiency impressed even, as her initiative confirmed growing operational partnership. Ready whenever you are. Naruto considered the facility's current status, weighing immediate investigation against ongoing implementation requirements. The northern mountains are approximately 3 hours from our position. If we depart immediately, we could reach the anomaly site before nightfall. I'll notify the appropriate personnel and secure transportation. Hinami replied, already typing instructions into her tablet. Recommended team composition: minimal. You and I initially. Scientific expertise and interdimensional experience. We can call for reinforcement if necessary. She nodded agreement, departing to make arrangements while Naruto created 3 shadow clones to continue facilities supervision during his absence. The clones immediately integrated into the ongoing work, their seamless coordination with association personnel demonstrating the growing acceptance of his unusual abilities within organizational operations. Within 30 minutes, Naruto and Hinami departed in an association transport vehicle, a modified all-terrain model equipped with specialized scientific equipment and defensive capabilities beyond standard designs. As they traveled northward, leaving City A behind for increasingly mountainous terrain, Hinami reviewed satellite data on her specialized tablet. The anomalous readings began approximately 36 hours ago, she explained, displaying chronological imagery. Initially minor atmospheric distortion, gradually intensifying to current levels. The pattern suggests Control-LLED process rather than random occurrence. Intentional manipulation, Naruto concluded, studying the data with experienced eyes. Similar to techniques used by certain Otsutsuki clan members for interdimensional communication rather than physical transit. Communication. This possibility clearly intrigued Hinami. You believe someone might be attempting contact between dimensions rather than passage. It's one possibility, Naruto acknowledged. The energy signature lacks the distinctive compression pattern associated with physical transference. Instead, it shows harmonic resonance pickle of information exchange across dimensional barriers. As their vehicle navigated increasingly rugged terrain, conversation turned toward theoretical aspects of interdimensional communication. Anami's scientific knowledge complemented Naruto's experiential understanding, creating collaborative analysis that generated new perspectives for both participants. Your parents' research might have inadvertently detected similar phenomena, Naruto observed as they connected various theoretical models. If dimensional boundaries were already weakening 12 years ago, sensitive instruments MIG-HT have registered harmonic resonances without proper contextual framework for interpretation. This suggestion visibly affected Hinami, her typically composed expression momentarily revealing deeper emotional currents. That would explain certain anomalous readings in their archived data. Patterns dismissed as instrument error or statistical noise at the time. Science often progresses through retrospective reinterpretation. Naruto offered gently, new contexts revealing meaning in previously discarded observations. She nodded, professional composure returning though appreciation for his understanding remained evident. If their work detected early manifestations of dimensional thinning, it might explain why the tentacled terror targeted their facility specifically. Certain monsters have demonstrated sensitivity to dimensional energies beyond conventional explanation. This hypothesis aligned with patterns Naruto had observed across multiple worlds. Certain entities possess an instinctive awareness of dimensional boundaries and responding aggressively to disruption of those boundaries. The Otsutsuki clan had studied this phenomenon extensively, though their research focused on exploitation rather than understanding. Their conversation paused as the vehicle's sensors indicated proximity to the anomaly site. They had reached a plateau approximately halfway up the North Mountain range, an area devoid of vegetation despite appropriate elevation and climate conditions. Residual chakra saturation, Naruto identified as they exited the vehicle. The natural energy has been artificially manipulated, rendering the environment temporarily inhospitable to organic growth. Hinami activated portable sensing equipment, confirming his assessment with scientific instrumentation. The energy displacement patterns match interdimensional communication theorems rather than physical manifestation protocols. Whatever occurred here involved information transfer rather than entity transference. Naruto extended his sage senses, connecting to the natural energy flows surrounding the anomaly site. The impression he received confirmed his initial hypothesis but added earning complexity. The communication had been bidirectional, with response patterns suggesting successful contact between dimensions. Someone from this world communicated with an entity from another dimension, he stated with quiet certainty. deliberately and with sophisticated understanding of interdimensional mechanics. This conclusion transformed their investigative parameters significantly. Rather than natural phenomenon or accidental breach, they faced evidence of intentional cross-dimensional contact facilitated by someone within this world possessing advanced knowledge. Hinami's scientific focus intensified as she collected data from multiple instruments. The residual energy contains structural patterns consistent with ritualistic application rather than technological generation. Similar to certain monster transformation ceremonies documented in ancient texts. As they investigated further, Naruto discovered a circular arrangement of stone markers partially buried in the soil, too precisely positioned for natural formation yet weathered enough to suggest age beyond recent placement. Closer examination revealed faint inscriptions in language unfamiliar to this world's conventional linguistics but disturbingly reminiscent of Otsutsuki ceremonial script. These are ancient, he observed, tracing weathered symbols with careful fingers. Yet they've been recently active, aided through application of specific energy patterns. Hinami photographed the inscriptions with specialized equipment. The association's historical archives might contain references to similar formations. Several archaeological expeditions documented anomalous structures in this region approximately 70 years ago, though the records were classified under special containment protocols. The methodical investigation continued for several hours, documenting the site's unique properties while establishing monitoring equipment for continued observation. As twilight descended upon the mountains, casting long shadows across the barren plateau, Naruto's enhanced senses detected subtle change in the surrounding energy patterns, a shift from residual discharge to active accumulation. "Someone's coming," he stated quietly, subtly shifting his stance to protective positioning. Single individual approaching from the western ridgeline. Unusual chakra signature. Not Akatsuki, but definitely trained in chakra manipulation. Hinami immediately secured her equipment while activating the vehicle's defensive protocols through remote command. Association records don't indicate any register. Heroes are known entities operating in this region. Definitely not a hero, Naruto confirmed as the signature clarified. The chakra pattern indicates water-natured affinity with unnatural harmony. Distortion. Similar to corrupted sage energy but distinctly different from natural transformation. The figure emerged from evening shadows with deliberate theatricality, a woman whose appearance combined elegant beauty with subtle wrongness that triggered instinctive wariness. Her long azure hair flowed like liquid around a face whose perfect symmetry bordered on uncanny. The simple white kimono she wore remained immaculate despite rugged terrain, its surface occasionally rippling with water-like patterns despite absence of actual moisture. "Sage God," she greeted Naruto, her voice carrying musical quality that nonetheless contained discordant undertones. "How convenient that you've saved me the trouble of seeking you out." Naruto maintained relaxed posture that belied his combat readiness. "You have me at a disadvantage. You know my designation, but I don't know yours." A smile curved her lips without reaching unnaturally pale eyes. "In this world, I'm called Mizuki. An unimaginative designation for one with water affinity, but humans rarely demonstrate creativity in their naming conventions." "In this world," Naruto repeated her phrasing with careful emphasis. "Implying you identify with another." "Perceptive," she acknowledged with slight inclination of her head. Though perhaps expected from one who has traversed dimensions himself. Hinami had positioned herself strategically, maintaining distance while activating additional monitoring equipment that served dual purposes: data collection and threat assessment. Her movements, while scientific in appearance, demonstrated tactical awareness beyond typical researcher protocols. "You've been communicating across dimensions," Naruto stated rather than asked, using ancient connection points established long before current civilization. Mizuki's expression registered momentary surprise before returning to practiced serenity. "Again, perceptive. The old pathways remain viable despite millennia of neglect. They merely required proper activation sequence." "Activation for what purpose?" Naruto asked directly, though he suspected her answer would contain calculated misdirection rather than genuine disclosure. "Knowledge exchange," she replied with apparent candor that nonetheless rang false to his experienced assessment. "This world contains unique energetic properties worth studying. Other dimensions offer perspective unattainable through conventional observation." Her explanation, while plausible on surface level, conceal deeper motivations evidenced by subtle indicators, micro-expressions of determination inconsistent with purely academic interest, chakra fluctuations suggesting emotional investment beyond scholarly curiosity, and positioning that maintained precise distance-optimized foe. Are either rapid retreat or technique deployment. Who taught you chakra manipulation? Naruto inquired, shifting conversational direction to assess her reaction. The techniques you're using aren't native to this dimension. The question produced brief but revelatory disruption to her composed facade. Perceptiveness becomes tiresome when repeatedly demonstrated, she observed with hint of genuine annoyance. My teachers remain my concern, sage god. My interest lies in your interference with dimensional harmonics that were stabilizing before your arrival. This accusation contained tactical information beyond its apparent complaint, confirmation that dimensional manipulation had been ongoing before Naruto's arrival, and that his presence had disrupted established patterns rather than initiating them. The implication suggested organized interdimensional activity predating the recent incursions. Stabilizing is an interesting choice of word, Naruto commented. Stable dimensional bound. Aries prevent unauthorized transit, something that apparently contradicts your objectives. Mizuki's pleasant expression hardened slightly. You presume to understand cosmic mechanics beyond your comprehension. The barriers between worlds aren't meant to be impermeable, they're membranes designed for selective permeability under proper conditions. Conditions you believe yourself qualified to determine, Hinami interjected, her scientific skepticism evident despite careful neutrality. Mizuki's gaze shifted to the scientist with momentary disdain before returning to Naruto. I came to offer professional courtesy, acknowledgement between practitioners of interdimensional arts. Your sage division represents potential collaboration opportunity if properly directed. Generous offer, Naruto replied with diplomatic ambiguity. Though collaboration typically requires shared objectives and transparent methods. Transparency is overrated, Mizuki dismissed with casual gesture that no Neville SS contained precise chakra manipulation, creating momentary reflective distortion in the air between them. Results matter more than methodologies. Your association's bureaucratic obsession with process impedes necessary advancement. The conversational pattern revealed ideological alignment with extremist pragmatism, ends justify means philosophy common among those pursuing power without ethical constraint. Naruto recognized the approach from numerous encounters with similar individuals across multiple worlds. Results without ethical framework often create consequences worse than the problems they purport to solve, he observed. Something history has demonstrated repeatedly across every world I've encountered. This philosophical rebuttal visibly irritated Mizuki, suggesting personal investment in justification narrative rather than merely professional disagreement. Morality is luxury afforded to those unaware of existential threats looming beyond dimensional veils, she countered. Intensity briefly overwhelming her cultivated serenity. The council understands necessity where others perceive only opportunity or danger. The council, Naruto inquired, recognizing significant intelligence opportunity in her momentary lapse. Mizuki's expression immediately recalibrated to practiced neutrality, though subtle chakra fluctuation revealed awareness of her tactical error. A rhetorical flourish, nothing more. Of course, Naruto accepted the obvious deflection without challenge, understanding that further pressure would only reinforce her communicative defenses. Instead, he shifted approach entirely. These stone markers contain script similar to Otsutsuki ceremonial writing. Interesting coincidence. The reference produced minute pupil contraction, physiological response impossible to consciously control. Ancient civilizations often developed similar symbolic systems despite geographic separation, she replied with practiced academic detachment that poorly masked genuine concern. Perhaps, Naruto acknowledged without pressing further. The information exchange, while superficially inconclusive, had provided valuable intelligence through observation of her reactions rather than content of her statements. Their conversation continued for several more minutes, circling through seemingly philosophical discussions that contained carefully embedded probes and responses. Mizuki gradually shifted from confrontational positioning to departure preparation, apparently having concluded that further interaction offered diminishing returns. Our paths will cross again, sage god, she stated as conversation naturally concluded. Consider my offer of collaboration before circumstances force less cooperative interactions. I'll give it appropriate consideration. Naruto responded with diplomatic politeness that acknowledged without committing. Mizuki's departure matched her arrival's theatrical quality, body dissolving into water-like substance that flowed between rocks before disappearing entirely. The technique resembled standard water-style substitution but contained unique properties suggesting hybridization with this dimension's natural physics rather than pure chakra application. Once certain of her complete departure through extensive sensory confirmation, Naruto turned to Hinami, whose scientific demeanor had given way to visible concern. "That was informative," she observed, reviewing readings captured during the encounter. "Her energy signature contains harmonic patterns inconsistent with either standard human biology or typical monster transformation." "She's neither fully human nor conventional monster," Naruto confirmed, sharing his more intuitive assessment. "Her chakra system shows evidence of artificial implementation rather than natural development. Someone literally installed chakra pathways into her existing biological structure." This analysis visibly disturbed Hinami, whose scientific understanding recognized the profound implications. "That should be theoretically impossible without fatal rejection syndrome. The body's natural energy systems would catastrophically conflict with artificially introduced pathways. Unless the implementation included biological rewriting at cellular level," Naruto explained, drawing on knowledge gained through decades of medical research in his home dimension. "Technically possible but ethically unconscionable. The process would cause indescribable suffering during transformation. The implications hung between them as twilight deepened toward true darkness." Whatever organization Mizuki represented, this council, she had accidentally referenced, possessed both technical capability and ethical flexibility to fundamentally alter human beings through chakra system implementation. "We should continue monitoring this site," Hinami finally broke the thoughtful silence. "If interdimensional communication recurs, the data could prove essential for understanding their objectives." Naruto nodded agreement while creating 3 shadow clones that immediately began establishing perimeter security and enhanced monitoring protocols. The original site investigation had evolved from scientific curiosity to urgent security concern, evidence of organized interdimensional manipulation with potentially catastrophic implications. As they prepared the association vehicle for return journey, Hinami paused in equipment storage to address the philosophical question underlying their discovery. If dimensional boundaries are naturally selective as she claimed, does she suggest interdimensional contact might be normal rather than aberrant? Perhaps even necessary for cosmic balance. This thoughtful inquiry demonstrated why Naruto increasingly valued her scientific partnership. Hinami consistently sought deeper understanding rather than merely categorizing phenomena as beneficial or threatening based on preconception. "In my experience," he replied carefully, "dimensional boundaries naturally maintain appropriate permeability without conscious manipulation, like cell membranes allowing necessary exchange while preventing harmful intrusion." He secured specialized equipment while organizing his thoughts. Forced breaching typically indicates attempt to circumvent natural limitations for specific advantage rather than cosmic necessity. Hinami considered this perspective as they completed preparations and began journey back toward City A. The association's historical archives might contain relevant information. Several ancient texts were recovered during early monster containment operations, materials deemed too metaphysically oriented for conventional scientific analysis but preserved nonetheless. "Worth investigating," Naruto agreed. "If dimensional manipulation has historical precedent in this world, understanding past encounters could provide strategic advantage against current threats." Their conversation continued as the vehicle navigated mountain paths under starlit sky, theoretical discussion grounded in immediate practical concerns. Neither noticed the solitary figure observing their departure from distant ridgeline, Kaori. Tatsugami's distinctive silhouette momentarily visible against moonlight before disappearing into mountain shadows with practiced stealth that even Naruto's enhanced senses failed to detect against he background natural energy fluctuations. The association's historical archives occupied subbasement level 12, a climate-controlled repository containing materials deemed too sensitive, unusual, or metaphysically ambiguous for conventional academic institutions. Access required specialized clearance beyond even S-class hero authorization, though Naruto's division leadership status combined Ed with Hinami's research credentials had secured necessary permissions with minimal bureaucratic resistance. 3 days after their mountain encounter with Mizuki, they stood before an ancient scroll. L carefully displayed in a specialized containment chamber. The parchment, carbon dated to approximately 3,200 years before present era, contained text in language that had defied conventional translati. Despite decades of linguistic analysis, the symbols share structural similarities with those we observed at the communication site, Hinami noted, comparing photographic evidence with the preserved document. Though these appear more formally rendered, suggesting ceremonial rather than practical application. Naruto studied the text with experienced eyes that had deciphered numerous ancient writings across multiple dimensions. The base language resembles early Otsutsuki ceremonial script, but contains regional adaptations specific to this dimension. I can translate approximately 60% with reasonable confidence. This capability impressed the archive's senior curator, an elderly man whose stooped posture and thick glasses contrasted with sharp intellectual focus. Remarkable. Our best linguists have managed only tentative interpretation of isolated characters. The advantage of interdimensional perspective, Naruto explained diplomatically. The script's foundational elements appear in multiple worlds with sufficient consistency to establish translation baselines. With careful attention to preservation protocols, Naruto began systematic translation of the ancient text. Working section by section while explaining his methodology to both Hinami and the increasingly fascinated curator. The process revealed narrative rather than merely ceremonial content, historic account recorded by witnesses to events that defied conventional understanding of their era. This section describes visitors from beyond the sky veil, Naruto translated, indicating specific character groupings. Beings of extraordinary power who walked among humans while maintaining separate existence. The text calls them gods who walk as men, and describes their ability to manipulate natural forces through unknown techniques. Quote, proto-historical description of interdimensional visitors, Hinami suggested, making careful notes as translation progressed. Possibly Otsutsuki clan member, based on your previous descriptions of their activities. Likely, Naruto agreed, continuing translation. This passage references harvesting of world essence, consistent with Otsutsuki chakra Fr. UIT cultivation practices documented in my dimension. As translation continued, the document revealed increasingly specific information, descriptions of dimensional thinning preceding visitor arrival, ceremonial sites established at natural energy convergence points, and eventually resistance movement among indigenous population who recognized exploitative nature of visitor activities. Most significant was passage near document's conclusion, containing what appeared to be prophetic statement rather than historical recording. When the world stands at precipice of consumption, the sage god shall emerge through fractured barriers. Golden light surrounding form that bridges mortal and divine. Ancient enemies shall pursue across dimensional veils, conflict resuming in new theater where outcome remains unwritten. The curator adjusted his glasses nervously as Naruto translated this section. That description bears remarkable similarity to reported observations of your arrival and subsequent Akatsuki incursion. Prophecy or historical pattern recognition, Hinami observed with scientific caution despite obvious correlation. Ancient cultures often recorded cyclical observations as predictive statements. Naruto considered the text thoughtfully, professional detachment balanced against personal experience with prophetic phenomena across multiple dimensions. Whether literal prophecy or pattern observation, the document confirms interdimensional visitation has historical precedent in this world. The described gods who walk as men, established presence, extracted resources, ND eventually faced indigenous resistance, consistent with Otsutsuki methodology documented across multiple dimensions. The implications extended beyond academic interest into immediate strategic concern. If Otsutsuki clan members had previously visited this dimension, they might have established infrastructure similar to what Naruto had encountered in his home world, dormant technology, sealed entities, and dimensional anchors designed to facilitate future return. The communication site we investigated could represent reactivation of ancient systems established during previous visitation, Naruto hypothesized. Connecting historical document with recent observations. Mizuki referred to old pathways, requiring proper activation sequence, potentially referring to infrastructure left by original visitors. This hypothesis aligned with observed evidence while suggesting concerning possibilities regarding Mizuki's council and their objectives. If they had discovered and reactivated Otsutsuki technology, they might inadvertently facilitate catastrophic interdimensional breach without understanding consequences of their actions. We should expand archival research to include all documented ancient sites with similar characteristics to the communication location, Hinami suggested, already organizing systematic approach. If pattern holds consistent, we might identify additional activation points before they're utilized. The curator, clearly struggling between academic excitement and practical concern, offered additional resources. The association maintains separate archaeological database documenting anomalous structures discovered during early monster containment operations. Many were classified under special protocols due to unexplainable properties or effects on surrounding environment. That database could prove invaluable, Naruto acknowledged gratefully. Historical context often provides strategic advantage when confronting dimensional threats. As they continued archival research throughout remainder of day, pattern emerged with increasing clarity, documented sites across world's geography sharing distinctive characteristics consistent with Otsutsuki visitation infrastructure. Each location corresponded with natural energy convergence points where dimensional boundaries naturally thinned during specific astronomical alignments. Most concerning was temporal pattern revealed through chronological analysis, activation events occurring with increasing frequency over past decade, accelerating significantly within previous 24 months. The progression suggested coordinated effort rather than random discovery, with methodical activation of sites following specific sequence. Their following activation protocol documented in ancient texts. Naruto concluded as pattern became undeniable. Systematically establishing interdimensional communication network using infrastructure created by previous visitors. Hinami's scientific object, Ivati, remained admirably intact despite concerning implications. The pattern indicates approximately 70% completion based on documented site activation. If sequential protocol requires complete network activation before major dimensional thinning can occur, then we have limited time before whatever they're planning reaches critical implementation stage, Naruto finished her thought. Strategic mind already calculating response options. The Sage Division needs to prioritize identification and monitoring of remaining inactive sites while developing countermeasures for activated locations. Their research continued late into evening, eventually relocating from archives to Sage Division headquarters where specialized analysis equipment facilitated pattern recognition across disparate data sources. As information coalesced into coherent operational intelligence, Naruto authorized alert notifications to key personnel, including Tatsumaki as S-Class liaison and, after brief consideration, Fubuki's Blizzard group through secure communication protocol. The interdimensional threat had evolved beyond theoretical concern into concrete strategic challenge requiring coordinated response. Whatever Mizuki's council intended through systematic activation of ancient communication network, the historical precedent suggested potential consequences far exceeding conventional disaster scenarios. As midnight approached and response protocols took shape, Naruto stepped outside facility into clear night air, seeking momentary perspective through connection with natural energy patterns surrounding their headquarters. The dimensional thinning remained subtle but measurable, background distortion gradually increasing as activation sites established cumulative effect across planetary energy grid. Trouble sleeping. Tatsumaki's distinctive voice interrupted his meditation. She descended from night sky with unusual grace, green energy surrounding her form like ethereal aura against darkness. Tactical consideration rather than rest seemed appropriate given circumstances, Naruto replied, noting her unexpected appearance with interest. Association records indicated she rarely responded to advisory notifications without direct emergency classification. Your alert mentioned ancient prophecies and interdimensional communication networks, she observed, landing beside him with uncharacteristic proximity tolerance. Normally I'd dismiss such metaphysical speculation, but recent events suggest conventional assessment parameters require adjustment. This acknowledged GM Ent represented significant perspective evolution from her initial skepticism regarding dimensional phenomena. The historical evidence correlates too precisely with current observations to dismiss as coincidence, Naruto confirmed. Whether literal prophecy or pattern documentation, the ancient texts describe situation matching our present circumstances with remarkable accuracy. Tatsumaki studied him with evaluative gaze that contained unexpected perceptiveness. You've encountered prophetic phenomena before. Yes, he acknowledged simply. In my dimension, certain individuals possess genuine precognitive capabilities, sometimes through genetic inheritance, other times through specific training methodologies. The great toad sage of Mount Myoboku foresaw numerous events that eventually manifested, including aspects of my own journey. This disclosure represented more personal information than he typically shared, offering insight into experiences that had shaped his perspective on metaphysical phenomena. Tatsumaki seemed to recognize the significance of this conversational shift, her response demonstrating unusual receptiveness. This world contains individuals with limited precognitive abilities, she revealed, offering reciprocal information exchange. My sister occasionally experiences flash precognition during periods of extreme stress, momentary glimpses of immediate future events rather than long-term prediction. This shared information created unexpected connection between them, mutual acknowledgement of phenomena beyond conventional scientific explanation without surrendering critical thinking or strategic assessment. Their conversation continued with surprising comfort, technical discussion of interdimensional theory interspersed with more personal perspective sharing than either typically engaged in. As discussion progressed, Naruto noticed subtle but significant changes in Tatsumaki's typical interaction patterns, reduced physical distance maintenance, increased conversational engagement, and most notably, occasional micro-expressions suggesting genuine interest beyond professional necessity. Her characteristic abrasiveness had moderated into focused intensity that, while still direct, lacked the dismissive quality that typically characterized her interactions with colleagues. The activation pattern suggests remaining sites will become operational within approximately 2 weeks. Naruto explained as conversation returned to immediate tactical considerations. We've identified 3 primary locations likely targeted for imminent activity. Based on geographical distribution and energy convergence factors, requiring simultaneous monitoring beyond your division's current personnel capacity, Tatsumaki observed with practical assessment. The association's deployment protocols would impose bureaucratic delays inappropriate to timeline. Precisely my concern, Naruto acknowledged. Which is why I've included Blizzard Group in information distribution. Their operational flexibility complements our specialized knowledge. This reference to her sister's organization produced expected tension but surprisingly measured response. Fubuki's resources are substantial despite her official classification, Tatsumaki conceded with reluctance that nonetheless represented significant collaborative concession. Her intelligence network, RK, has proven reliable regarding anomalous phenomena. The conversation paused briefly as natural energy fluctuation rippled through surrounding atmosphere, subtle distortion perceptible to Naruto's age senses and apparently to Tatsumaki's psychic awareness as well, given her simultaneous reaction. The dimensional thinning is accelerating, she observed, green energy flaring briefly around her form in response to environmental shift. Even I can sense the distortion pattern now. Yes, Naruto confirmed, golden chakra momentarily visible as his own energy system automatically adjusted to fluctuation. The cumulative effect of activated sites is creating harmonic resonance across planetary energy grid. Each new activation compounds effect exponentially rather than linearly. This observation carried concerning implication regarding activation timeline. If exponential progression continued, remaining sites might become viable sooner than projected through standard mathematical modeling. The strategic window for preventative intervention could be narrowing more rapidly than anticipated. We should prioritize immediate countermeasure development rather than merely monitoring remaining sites. Tatsumaki suggested with tactical insight that aligned with Naruto's own assessment. Reactive response may prove insufficient given acceleration pattern. Agreed, Naruto acknowledged, appreciating her strategic perspective. The Sage Division has developed preliminary stabilization technique based on harmonization between chakra and this world's natural energy patterns. Experiment. Implementation scheduled for tomorrow morning. I'll participate, she stated rather than offered. The energy harmonization effect we've demonstrated could improve stabilization efficiency. Is direct volunteering represented unprecedented collaborative initiative from someone notorious for independent operation and resistance to joint missions without explicit association mandate. The Shish IFT suggested evolving perception of both the interdimensional threat and Naruto himself, recognition of complementary capabilities beyond mere tactical convenience. Their conversation concluded with practical arrangement details. Tatsumaki departing with characteristic vertical ascension, though tempered by brief farewell acknowledgement rather than her typical abrupt disappearance. As green energy trail faded against night sky, Naruto considered the interaction with thoughtful assessment of its multiple dimensions. Beyond tactical planning and theoretical discussion, their exchange had kontai. Ned's subtle but unmistakable evolution in interpersonal dynamic, mutual respect transitioning towards something resembling genuine connection. Whether this represented merely professional relationship development or potential for deeper association remained unclear, but the trajectory suggested positive progression beyond initial suspicion that had characterized their early interactions. As Naruto returned to facility to continue coordination of response preparations, he remained unaware of distant observation from multiple perspectives, Hinami watching thoughtfully from research center window, evaluating interaction with scientific objectivity tempered by growing personal investment, Kaori Tatsugami monitoring from concealed position beyond facility perimeter, her clan's specialized technique. Masking presence even from sage senses focused elsewhere, and most concerning, microscopic drone hovering at extreme range, its advanced optical systems recording interaction for transmission to unknown recipients whose interests in interdimensional developments remained unclear. The complex web of observation reflected broader truth about Naruto's position within this world, his actions and associations generating ripple effects across multiple organizational, personal, and dimensional boundaries. As the sage god established stronger presence within this reality, both allies and adversaries adjusted strategies accordingly. Recognizing transformative potential his existence represented. Whether ancient prophecy or merely historical pattern recognition, the scrolls' prediction of unwrit 10 outcome reflected fundamental reality. The convergence of dimensions had created new possibilities whose resolution remained undetermined. The path forward would depend on choices made by individuals across spectrum of power and influence, with Naruto's own decisions representing critical but not exclusive factors in ultimate resolution. The way of the sage had always emphasized harmony within eternal forces rather than dominance over them. As interdimensional boundaries thinned and ancient powers stirred, this philosophy would face its greatest test, not merely through confrontation with external threats, but through navigation of complex ethical, relationship, and strategic considerations that transcended conventional heroic paradigms. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.